Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
And Iguodala, 12 feet away left of the lane, holding the ball. Now he's going to back in, spins, turning with the left hand. Hook shot, no good. But it comes to Cam Jones. Open three. You know it's going in. Sweet by Cam Jones, who's now up to 29.
Here's Alexander, explodes down the right angle. His shot is blocked away by Taylor. Taylor, left wing pass. Hit three-point shot. Good for Danish Jenkins. Jenkins has 23.
This one's tipped to take it away. McDowell batting it ahead to Harris. A lob. Timberlake. A slam. Are you kidding me? Timberlake takes it to the top floor and throws it down. Ready to spin. Top of the key, and Mason Gillis 3 is on the way. Triple time! Thank you, Mason Gillis!
In the corner, three will drop. Gary with 19, his third from deep tonight.
That's the underhand to Gary. Steps back for a three.
A career high 22 for Jawan Gary.
Good morning. Welcome into Hurrdat Sports Radio here on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and we are live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. What's going on, man?
Hi.
What's up?
How we doing?
I'm all right. How was your weekend?
Oh, it was okay.
Yeah?
Apparently my energy's bad, though. That's what...
Your energy's bad?
Nah, I mean, I said something the other day about, energy doesn't lie.
Yeah.
Apparently I'm not giving off good energy. So I'm gonna have a spark.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pour a nice little. It smells like powder.
Well, yeah, because it is a powder.
I know.
That's the problem.
I know.
It's all right. We'll get through it. A little pre-workout.
Yeah, it's good. Couple guys got to. It was fine.
How were the
Cleaned
districts
the
on
garage.
Saturday?
Districts were good.
Yeah.
Big Tuesday tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's not Super Tuesday or anything.
It's different. It's a different thing.
Yeah.
Used to be Big Monday and Super Tuesday.
Yeah. So
They don't do that anymore.
Can we do away with something though? The Friday night college basketball thing is annoying.
Yeah, it's a little too much.
A lot of times it's Big Ten too. I hate
Yeah.
to say, but
The Big East had a couple this year, which was weird. I didn't like it.
yeah, Operation Poo Poo.
Yeah, let's get rid of the Friday nights.
We're not a fan.
I need a day that we can just like mark off as not having to worry about it.
Yeah.
You know,
So officially, I think I have the cleanest garage in America.
nice
My buddy Chris hung a mirror for me.
in the garage.
No,
Okay, I was like,
not a lot of
what? I was like,
vanity going on in the garage.
maybe you want to like get all the angles of your car. You want to make sure it's all clean. I don't know.
I had to move the Blackstone to the deck. It's about that time.
Okay, all right,
And then got to get a couple lights.
for the deck
Yes.
that time of year.
So is this very non-manly that I brought it in for somebody smarter than me to tell me what I needed to get?
No,
I mean, I could look at it, but Shane, I don't know. It's like,
I appreciate you acknowledging what you don't know.
right.
So
I have this is a floodlight, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a flash. It's a light bulb for a deck.
Yeah.
That's all I can tell. That's all I can tell you.
And I gotta meet Coach at about 11.
Yeah. Which coach is that? There's a lot of coaches out there, DB.
Closer to like 10:45, I hope.
All right. Well,
He doesn't sit still, so it'll be pretty.
he's a moving target. You try to.
very, very much so. And apparently he likes for his guys to dunk because it was flooding my timeline. I was like, okay, I'm over it. Is that bad? Like, was I super Walt Kowalski? over
Yeah, I
there?
think you maybe were a little bit of a curmudgeon on that one.
Yeah, I was like, okay, I just want to win. Like, can they hoop? Can they play football?
Yeah, I mean, I think
That's really all I care about.
I know.
Right?
I think, but okay, I know you have to take off DB hat for a second.
Okay, which one is that?
That's
Just like
that's like the analyst, former player hat. You got to take that one off for a second.
Okay, cool. All right.
Put
Wait.
Take that one off.
Okay.
Put the fan hat on for a second. I know you don't break that one out very often. But from a
Okay.
fan perspective, it's a cool thing to watch.
It was cool.
It's a cool thing to watch. I honestly, I have it in my notes, and you're probably like, I don't know what this guy's talking about. It reminded me of this thing that I went to when I was a kid.
Mhm.
And I think it was
This is terrible, by the way.
yeah, it looks bad.
Do you want to smell it?
Nope. I've smelled it before. I'm good. It reminded me of there was this thing that Nebraska. I don't know how often they did it, but Nebraska football players used to do when they were seniors.
Yeah, I did that.
The basketball thing.
Yeah, I jumped off your boy's back multiple times.
Which boy?
Virgil.
Oh, did you?
And he would lift me with his hands.
So I think it was. I'm trying. Jock Vaughn.
Yes.
It's one of the coolest things I've seen to this day.
RIP to his coaching prowess in Brooklyn.
Well, fair.
He got replaced by an Ollie, though.
He was laying down at half court and made a half court shot laying down.
Oh, really?
Which was one of the coolest things I'd ever seen.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of get what that would take. It takes some tremendous core strength.
Obviously, got to have a little tricep involved there.
Mm-hmm. I saw a guy do a backhand spring out of bed. From his back.
That's aggressive.
It was LP.
That makes sense. Clinton was there at the one I was at.
Yeah.
It was, because I remember he was the one guy whose autograph I couldn't get. So my mom.
I know it in my head.
My mom, chased him down.
Where was he?
So he went back to the locker room super fast.
Yeah, sounds like him.
And
did he have cool shoes? He always.
I don't remember shoes. He was wearing.
I wore good basketball shoes.
I remember though he was wearing a Notre Dame jacket, and I was like, "I'm a kid, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, what's happening here?" But my mom gave this sob story about how he was one of my, and I really liked Clinton when he played.
Yeah,
and. I'm not going to go there this morning. I'm not going to do it.
So even as a peer,
yeah,
I love the way he looked in his gear. Like you usually don't, even in high school. Like I kind of tried. We had this thing. I was over there every week.
Yeah,
right. He had a pool table downstairs. It was nobody ever bothered us. I really liked his brothers, and he wore this neck roll. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, man, because he really liked Eric Dickerson.
Okay, yeah.
And I was already wearing the rec specs. So I tried to go with the whole cowboy collar thing, and it just didn't quite look like his.
No, he looked the part for sure.
Yeah.
And
he tore us up.
So he went back. So my mom worked her way back, and she's like, hey, my son's a big fan. I'm 8 or 9 years old at this point. Goes, hey, my son's a big fan. Is there any chance? He's one of his favorite players. And so they took me back to the locker room with my Nebraska poster, and he signed it for me.
Oh, that's cool.
It was super cool. But that's what this reminded me of. So maybe I'm just overly nostalgic about this type of thing.
And I'm not. So that's probably what you're. I'm the anti-nostalgia.
Yeah, you're the total opposite. And usually I am too. But it was part of the reason. I don't know if you ever had one of these moments. It was part of the reason I liked it so much is because I had no idea we were going.
Yeah.
It was a total surprise to me. My mom's like, hey, get in the car. We got to run some errands, whatever. And we roll up to Millard West, which I had never been to before because it opened that year. It was 96 or whatever. And we go and I'm like, what's going on? I'm very confused. There's a lot of people there. We walk in and I see all of these Huskers who I'm obsessed with.
That was peak. And he was the year he left he's the year
He was the year before you.
Yeah.
So this was spring 96.
Even though we came in together.
Yeah. Well, because you redshirted a year, right?
Yeah, and he came. Was he prop? I can't even remember.
He only played 3 years.
Yeah, he was. Yeah. I think it was his prop year.
But so it was a super cool. So I saw this. That's the first place my head went. I got transported back 30 years to being a kid watching these guys. I mean, they played a whole game, but they dunked and they did the half court shot.
And it was perfect too for that game because of the arena was lit.
Yes, it was. It was Coach Rule has an incredible knack for kind of timing and feeling these things out. Mm-hmm. You call it his discernment, and I don't know, I don't have a better word for it.
Yeah.
But feeling out situations and people and circumstances.
Yeah,
and knowing the right thing to do. Does it win them any football games? Absolutely not. Are a lot of the guys, or at least a couple of the guys that we saw yesterday, probably even going to factor into winning football games? Probably not. I don't know how much Heinrich Harburg's going to factor into winning football games next year. I don't know how much Jeremiah Charles.
He may start. Jeremiah Charles.
Okay, fair. I thought you were going to say in Heinrich for a second. I was like, at H-back?
You ready to fight already?
No, I was just asking.
Yeah, Charles, he's one to watch.
Fair. That's totally fair.
He's 100% one to watch.
Super athletic freak. He's got the track stuff and whatever. Like he's one of those guys.
Yeah,
I don't know.
The track and field exploits from the football team last week were pretty cool.
Good. Jalen Lloyd's.
They both go over 24 feet.
Yep. Jalen Lloyd's the real deal.
He's just getting started. So he kind of has a reprieve with strength training too.
Oh,
because of track. Yeah.
Which I don't know that I'm not mad he's doing track, but I feel like he could.
Yeah, the balance is always interesting.
Yeah,
but he put on so much mass just last year.
Jalen.
Oh, he looked amazing. I was like,
so maybe he can do enough over the summer to.
And he's got one of those frames
that is easy to add on to.
Yeah, as long as he's staying explosive, the mass can come at any point.
Right. Fair. Which the track probably helps with the explosiveness, right? So, but that's why I like that kind of stuff. Is I get it doesn't help you win any football games, right? I don't know how much Emmett Johnson's going to help you win football games next year. Maybe he will, maybe he won't. I don't know.
I like EJ. You guys poo-poo on EJ.
I'm not poo-pooing him. I just don't know.
At some point, we'll have some shows where I'm gonna tell you why I think Emmett Johnson is better than people give him credit for.
Totally fair. I will say when he tried to jump over Matt Rule, I was like, that's not happening.
He's close.
He was close. He wasn't.
The greatest athletic feat in that whole deal was the way he cushioned his fall.
Yeah.
That was pretty spectacular.
Because that could have gone badly.
Could have gone awkward.
Yeah, that could have gone badly. But he's rolled off it.
I like him a lot.
I don't dislike EJ. I don't know with some of the transfers they brought in, some of the maybe guys coming back off injuries or not. I don't know. I don't know how much he's going to contribute. Maybe he will a ton. I have no idea. My point is, while that doesn't help you win anything,
it was the catalyst to a 45-point second half.
I mean, got the crowd tuned up pretty good for him.
I couldn't believe the tale of. So I watched all the pressers. Were you surprised that there was such reference to the second half 2 months ago?
Yeah, kind of. I don't know. I generally don't think something that happened 2 months ago is going to, even if it's same like opponent. Like I get that.
Well, I'm reluctant to say that. I just don't know how, because you never know how something makes you feel.
Sure.
And sometimes time doesn't matter.
That's
right.
Fair.
So if we're not in our feels after FSU, a year later, I still know what that. Heck, 20 some odd years later, I still know what that felt like.
Fair.
So I don't know about that. I was surprised to hear Coach Hoiberg reference it.
That's fair.
Because usually coaches don't. So many things happen in between.
They usually downplay.
Yeah, they do, and you try to stay in the moment. But he unabashed. He's put it out there all year though. Like I think he knows he has a team where he can say some things to and in the media. And they respond. This is a very, very, very close-knit group. You can tell they like one another.
At some point, we're going to have an in-depth discussion on Fred Hoiberg, because I've been incredibly impressed what he's done the last 2 years. I feel like he is an entirely different person than he was before that, at Nebraska at least.
Well, you got to remember, his staff changed.
Right. He's the same guy that hired that staff, though.
Yeah, but so when you have a working relationship with guys like this, for this instance, we'll use Abdel Massi.
Yeah, that's who we're all thinking about.
But there's one there. Okay, so there's a couple though, but let's take him as the main one.
That's the one that he gets the main villainization because of the way the roster was built.
Now, when you're used to working with a guy a certain way, and you've had success with it, when it doesn't go that way, sometimes you just innately you be who you have to be. Doesn't mean he wasn't capable of being that person. It just means that the way that it was, he no longer has.
That's fair. I think what it was for me was...
Does that make sense?
It does. I felt like he wasn't interested in being this person, like this version of a coach. It seemed like he liked the situation of, okay, this guy does the recruiting, I go over here and I coach, and never the twain shall meet, right? Like that's what it felt like from the outside looking in, from the way people were talking about it. That's kind of how it went down at Iowa State. That to me, and maybe I was making assumptions, right? I'm totally willing to admit that. felt like, I'm not totally interested in doing the whole college coaching thing. You go give me the players and I'll coach them up. That's what it felt like.
Like you think the perception was he wasn't as interested,
invested, maybe is the right word, of being.
I was just trying to figure out.
That's what it seemed like to me.
Okay.
And then all of a sudden, over the last 2 years, it seemed like, oh, this is the guy that maybe we thought we were getting in the first place. This guy that is super dialed in, knows how to push the right buttons with his team, knows what he can say to his team and like kind of where he can go and say some things to him that maybe you couldn't say to everybody else. The roster construction is night and day different.
And
right?
I think it's undersold too. So not only is there a couple of guys on his staff undersold for kind of because remember, I've said this forever, like you can't be afraid to surround yourself with people that are smarter than you.
Yeah.
Or hire people that are smarter than you.
Yeah.
Right? As long as they don't want your job, it's probably going to be okay. And I think with his staff and getting defensive minded, but he gave you glimpses last year because they were like 2.5 different teams at various points during the season last year.
Well, that's why I say the last 2 years.
And he
right?
I'm with you.
Yeah.
I'm with you. And he was kind of able to light switch the way that they wanted to play a couple of different times.
Yeah, pull the levers a little bit.
And then what I think was kind of understated was, and we talked about this early was, and maybe it was just because I felt like coaches were letting me know that they really liked this team. And I remember doing a show and I said, I'm not saying that he hasn't liked his teams in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was guilty of what I get mad at people about. I shouldn't have had to give that quantifier. Right. Oh, you look pretty today. Oh, I didn't yesterday. Ravi, love that beard. What was wrong with it? I'm not saying that he didn't like his, and I shouldn't have to say that. I'm not saying he didn't like his teams before, but you could just tell, and you pit it against what he's saying in the media, what he has said in the media. He's used a couple of names, right, which we're sometimes not used to hearing.
Yeah.
Although apparently a lot of coaches in college basketball do that now.
Well, one of the other guys we saw yesterday, Rick Pitino, likes to do that, but
Fred McCaffrey did it.
Yeah.
How about Pitino rolling with the white when I just was making fun of the all white on Friday?
Yeah, I mean, I text you. He looks like a televangelist. Like he looks like he's going to ask you for some money for a healing, and then he's going to fly away in his private jet.
So it's like, the putting it together, and it fits right in my wheelhouse. Because I value the importance of getting along as a team.
Mm-hmm.
It is extremely understated. We assume that it happens. We work around it. I'm just telling you, when you like one another,
makes everything easier.
Everything
makes everything easier.
I'm watching it at the local level, right? Where if that team wasn't as connected as they are at Westside, it would be easy for them to be bothered by some individuals to be bothered by some things that happen during a game sometimes. They can get a little selfish.
Yeah. Right?
So, but because they like one another,
you can get over it.
It's like, we're cool. We'll figure it out the next time. So I'm a big, I said this before about this upcoming season, this last season or seasons before last, or I'll maybe use a different school that has a lot of other good players. It's not just about having good players. There's been lots of coaches that have had good players whose teams don't maximize,
who haven't won anything. I will say, I think the fit of the roster, it can go both ways, right? So if you like each other a lot, the roster can tend to fit better, even if the pieces don't necessarily make a ton of sense. I also think it can go the other way, especially when you're kind of Nebraska, you're bringing in a bunch of new guys kind of every other year. You're trying to fit pieces together. I think Nebraska's roster making more sense now as a basketball team lends itself to them liking each other.
But
more.
What if it could be something as simple as, hey, listen, we need to practice better, right? We need to ratchet up our practice. Insert a guy like Jawan Gary, who every time he's on the court, he's going to practice a certain way.
Yeah, he's going to give you what you need.
You couple that with the evolution of his game, or a guy like Jamarcus Lawrence, who goes to the bench and then for whatever the reason has accepted the role and plays better. Maybe it was because he saw a guy like CJ Wilcher do it.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so the modeled behavior, and kind of how to do things like that. You can't undersell that kind of stuff. It doesn't. He's not. I don't think we're giving him Coach Hoiberg near enough credit for the behind the scenes stuff. I think it's crucial.
And that's where
I think it is absolutely crucial. Could he have benched Tominaga last year?
Could have.
No, I don't think so.
What do you mean by benched?
If he doesn't like the way that he's playing, he kind of had to live with it and hope that he snapped out of it.
Sure. Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Generally speaking.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Don't let me talk you into it if you disagree.
Well, so I mean, I think
because he doesn't anymore.
No, but I kind of think we also forget that
we talked about the defensive lapses last year,
yeah.
but he's had to stay on the floor because of the offensive firepower.
But I think
he doesn't have to do that anymore.
We also kind of forget until the injuries hit last year, Tominaga wasn't playing this
I understand.
role. So like earlier in the year, he kind of was benching him because he had other options.
Careful though, because Pelini wasn't playing Levante David either. So don't let that be an indictment. Like sometimes that just happens.
No, I get that. But it's
you know what I mean?
Hard to say he couldn't have benched him when he wasn't an integral part of the team at the
but you can't
start of the season.
Yeah, but you can't unknow what you know. It's not like you can say, "Oh, I didn't see him just go get 30 in about 12 minutes." I know we didn't have that before, but man, going forward, I didn't just see that.
At the end of the season when the injuries were, and that's about all he had, he probably couldn't have benched him last year.
I think you're selling what Casey did. I think you're selling him a little short.
In what sense?
Because there were times where he was all they had.
Right, at the end of the year.
Yeah.
I'm going to go look it up. I'm going to go look at the game log. Because the way I recall it, and I could be wrong, the way I recall it was Tominaga really didn't emerge until after injuries sort of forced him into his role.
Yeah. So, for instance, when you go get a guy like Bryce, Bryce has to have a temperament. And I don't even know if you know this going in. You could probably look at his game and think, okay, he's a 3-level guy. He's efficient.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to hunt. He could play with a guy that maybe does. Or he could thrive in a guy.
Sure.
I don't have to. He's low maintenance. I don't have to. You know what I mean?
He doesn't need the ball.
So you can surround him with different kinds of pieces. Because for all the 20-win stuff and the productivity, I think you got to get inside the pieces. Like, just pick a guy. A month ago, a guy that comes in on Fridays was like, I mean, and he wasn't alone. It was Rink Mass is Nebraska's best player. Rick Mass hasn't really shown up consistently in about a month.
Yeah, for a hot minute.
And it hasn't really mattered. Like, that's important.
Yes, I agree.
He has to be willing to accept that and still play his game. And you have to be able to evolve around that and still play your game, all while not getting time to figure it out without having to do it on the fly. Like, I don't undersell any of that stuff.
That's part of the reason I say the fit of the roster can lend itself to being closer knit as a team, because I believe everybody's more comfortable, and I mean that in a good way, not a bad way, when they know their role or when they know what's expected and asked of them. When you're in a situation where you don't necessarily know that, sometimes it's hard to like the people
I
around
get
you.
that, the obvious point of that, but sometimes you can't control that. Wilcher doesn't know if he's going to have to go for 18 and a half.
No, but that's not what I mean. We can pick this up.
You know what I mean?
I do. I know what you mean. We can pick this up on the other side of the break here. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We'll set the lineup. We got Creighton as well. We got more Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back.
We got ourselves a winner.
Lawrence around the screen. Gets it. Drives in. Counted in the foul. Off the floor to Lawrence. Left alone for three. Rolls it home.
You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Lawrence around the screen. Gets it. Drives in. Counted in the foul. Off the floor to Lawrence. Left alone for three. Rolls it home. And for just the seventh time in school history, Nebraska has 20 wins in the regular season.
Really proud of the guys. You need to keep that defensive edge. I like how we're playing right now. Got to continue to go out there and next one focus on a really good Ohio State team that's had a couple of the best wins in the conference.
Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio here on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube as well. Want to let you know what's coming up on the show today at 8. We will talk to Mike DeCourcy. He is from the Sporting News. He also does Big Ten Network studio work and he does a little bit of everything for Fox, but
everything,
a little bit of everything.
Everything.
But we're going to talk about college hoops. We're going to talk about college hoops.
Hi, Trev.
With Mike DeCourcy at 8. We're going to talk with Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald at 9. The rest of the time, it is you, me, and
Dupree.
DB.
Hi, Shano.
And Shane's here, too.
Totally on me.
You can give us a call at 888-638-4876, or, you can hit us up on Twitter. Those YouTube comments often popping, as always. I wanted to get back into the roles we were talking about.
Why,
earlier,
Ravi?
because I don't know that you understood what I was talking about.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
No.
Well, if you weren't so deliberate, maybe I could listen better.
Listen, sometimes I try and keep it at a pace you're comfortable with.
Hey, see this guy?
What?
We
were talking.
All right,
I was
giddy up.
I was trying to make the argument that if you have a team whose roles fit together better, it's easier to like one another.
Mm-hmm.
And you made the argument that these guys don't always necessarily know what their role's going to be on a night-to-night basis.
Mm-hmm.
Is that fair?
100% correct.
I would argue that's not the case, even though it looks different.
Oh.
CJ Wilcher knows what his role is every night.
Yeah, go get buckets off the bench.
Yes.
I know.
Spark plug off the bench.
Okay.
Right? So he knows that's his role every day. Sometimes it looks for 18. Sometimes it's 3.
Cool.
Right? But him knowing that and knowing that is his exact role makes his life easier. It also makes everybody else's life easier.
Why'd you pick the most one-dimensional guy of the bunch?
Because that's the guy you brought up. You go, I don't know if CJ Wilcher.
Who would I say first?
I don't know. I heard CJ Wilcher first.
Yeah, because listening and hearing. Jamarcus Lawrence. You think Jamarcus Lawrence knows whether they need 3 threes or 2 threes or 1 3 or to initiate the offense?
Jamarcus Lawrence is a tough one.
Okay,
it really is.
Well, let's give you another one since we're on this. Let's go Jawan Gary. You think that they know that Jawan Gary is going to have to pump it in from behind the arc?
No, but
do you think that they think, hey, Jawan, we need your offense tonight. You got to go double digits.
I think that most nights they need him to go double digits.
So it wasn't just a month ago that we were talking about when he was hurt, how they missed his defensive prowess. We didn't say
he can't play both sides of the ball.
No, you don't get to go back and get it, though. We didn't at any point when Jawan Gary was hurt say we miss his offense.
They missed his defense more. Oh. What?
Because revisionist history affords you the luxury of being able to say that.
It certainly does.
But in the moment, because we're adults and we can remember things, that's not what was being said. So his offensive evolution, which I believe his coach talked about, his ability to stay in the gym and work on his shot and dial from distance, they didn't know that was coming. They didn't know that was coming, Robbie.
That's fair.
So even we couldn't have known that it was coming for us to be able to talk about it.
But what I'm talking about for what they are doing with their particular roles, right?
Yeah.
On offense, it is more fluid because they have more options.
You have a lot, yes.
Right? You have Tominaga can go off one night. You've got Rink Mass has had big games offensively. CJ Wilcher's had big games offensively, right? You have a lot of different dudes that have had big games offensively. That's why we focus on his defense, because there's fewer options to take up that slack for him.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Sure.
Like if there is a,
well, I'm not going to be like, oh, okay, because the goalposts were slid a little, but that's okay. Like real time, I'm not gonna.
Right.
I don't need my pound of flesh.
We're processing this in real
fluid.
time.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
The defensive side of the ball has fewer options to replace what Jawan Gary brought to the table.
Although they are the best defensive field goal percentage team in the conference, which means that has been a constant, regardless of who's playing.
That's true. Jawan Gary also didn't miss that many games, right? I mean, he missed what, 3-4 games?
Yeah.
So that's a small enough sample size that probably doesn't skew large enough to take them out of what they've done all season.
Oh,
right? Because sample size matters. We learned that last week.
So is it because of their defensive versatility? Are we downplaying Gary? Or are we saying
no? I'm just saying
because there are guys that you can take out of lineups that will ruin a team defensively, even if it's only for one game.
That's fair. I mean,
is that true?
I don't think that's true of Gary. I think Gary's important to what they do defensively.
But are there people like that?
Yeah, Ryan Kalkbrenner. He exists just up the street.
Okay, so I'm
think
not
Gary,
refuting the sample size. I'm telling you
that sometimes it doesn't matter.
Yes.
But for the season-long stats, even if you ruin them for the one game, that's not going to skew the stats that much.
Correct.
For the whole season.
Correct.
My point with Gary is he is a very good defender. They need him more defensively because they have fewer guys to replace him. I don't think he's a Ryan Kalkbrenner cog of the defense type of player.
Okay.
Right? So it's a little bit different. I will say their ability to turn a bunch of guys who maybe we didn't know had these types of offensive games into a Jawan Gary that hits 4 or 5 threes yesterday and some of them not easy shots, right? There was a couple of those, especially the last couple.
The one where he kind of slid into the corner and knocked that down. That was a confidence I could.
That one, and then the one where he is getting closed out on hard on the wing.
Oh yeah,
and
that was an eye socket.
Yeah, that was in that dude's eyeball.
Yeah, he had to pull the twine out.
Not 100% sure how that got over the guy's hand. Mm-hmm. He had a couple really challenging shots. Jamarcus Lawrence being versatile in terms of what he was being asked to do. Rink Mass I think Rink Mass' role has not changed that much. Sometimes they ask him to score a little bit more than they do, but he's always sort of that. I think on the broadcast yesterday, they said that Hoiberg saw him as sort of a George Niang type guy, where he could sort of be the focal point of the offense, but doesn't always necessarily have to score. I think their ability to adapt to their roles offensively has been a huge part of why. Because this is a team that could not always score very well, right? Like there were times this year where it was a struggle bus to score the basketball. That to me is the most impressive in-season thing they've done.
Yeah, but you know what? It's kind of bugging me about the analogy though.
What's that?
With Gary, and because I still think we're underselling. Because while Gary wasn't playing, Alec did.
Yeah.
And we figured out that Alec's pretty good. Like they need. No, you don't roll your eyes now.
I was trying to think. I wasn't trying to roll my eyes.
So, and it's okay if you did. I'm not offended. I just said that.
No, sometimes when I think I look up.
So, but Nebraska didn't get away from playing Alec, right? They found a way to play both he and Gary and still continue to get better.
Yeah, because they found something they liked.
So those kinds of what I'm saying is those kinds of things matter, and those roles aren't defined. They evolved on the fly, and they learned to embrace them.
I understand that not everybody's role was defined coming into the season, right?
So I'm trying to get in between the goalposts.
So all I'm saying is listen, I might have it wrong with this particular team.
I think can we just agree that we're underselling the level of understanding to get in where I fit in? Because that's what the guys have really done.
Totally fair.
Hey, we're going to get in where we fit in because it's changed.
But my point with the get in where you fit in, it helps a ton to have a starting idea of where you might fit in.
Okay.
That's what I mean by role.
Water's pretty wet.
Allegedly. You know what I mean? Like, but because there's a difference between, hey, get in where you fit in and then not having any idea what that means. Right? I've worked in places where I didn't know what that meant, right? Get in where you fit in.
So I guess at the end of the day, I'm saying I think the culture has to be the culture has to sit in such a way where people are willing and can do it on the fly, whatever you need.
Fair.
And there's some beauty in that.
There is, for sure.
Right? Like
for sure.
Sometimes Christian doesn't know if he's going to catch 6 passes. He may not get one. But the culture is on any given night.
That's totally fair.
Like there's something to be said for that.
I also think there's something to be said for giving guys an idea of, hey, this is where you might fit in. And that might change, but giving guys a starting place helps a lot. And not everybody does that. Coming up next, we'll wrap up hour number 1.
Already?
Apparently. We set the lineup, though, so we're good. We've got more Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back.
Just as steady as any player in the league. Knows when to attack, knows when to get others involved.
Gary taking it home. 2 on the board for Gary. Gives the Huskers their largest lead of the night at 13. Huskers on the move.
You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We got ourselves a winner. It is the one and only Jeremiah J.J. Jar.
Wrapping up hour number 1 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube as well. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla, and we are talking local hoops this morning. DB just tweeted out the lineup. Did you pick that GIF on purpose in Liverpool?
Yeah.
I didn't know you were a soccer guy.
I mean, hey, if people want to talk about it with me, it's fine. I don't invite the conversation.
Okay.
But yeah, all my gifts are intentional. That's kind of my thing.
Okay. I like Liverpool. That's why
I do not. I
Okay.
just like the GIF, and I knew it was a big weekend.
It was a big weekend. Good win for them in the Carabao Cup.
So
I know that's why you're listening to Sports Talk Radio in Omaha, Nebraska to hear about the English Premier League.
Sometimes, though, do you know how hard that is? Because there's lots of things that I want to talk about that I care about that I'm not sure everybody else does. Because we would do a lot more hockey and we would do a lot more NBA.
I love NBA. We can talk about NBA anytime.
Okay.
NHL is the one where you lose me a little bit. Just being totally honest.
Well, how about Nebraska's duel yesterday? Like, so there are things. So my buddy Chris came over. I told you, and he was.
I'll say they whooped up. That was it. What 26-9?
Yeah, right around there. 26-6, 26. Yeah, right around there.
Yeah.
And tinkered with the lineup here a little bit, and Well, I was going to get into Ridge Love. I'm not. We don't have to do wrestling right now. But finding that either through Flow Wrestling or Altitude Pac-12, like my channels, is nothing short of a headache.
Oh yeah,
but not near as difficult because at least I knew regional. I was like, okay, I've got to go. I knew I only had a couple of options to find.
Sure.
But baseball, though, to find an offset from the ESPN Plus broadcast to just watching it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I got to show you my library sometime.
ESPN Plus broadcasts are easier for me to find just because the way
I have the most eclectic library for my streaming.
Yeah,
it's unbelievable.
I am very comfortable with ESPN Plus because that's where I had to watch all my Indian cricket matches, so I've gotten real used to navigating.
Whoa. You watch Indian cricket?
Oh, yeah, Indian Premier League cricket.
Okay.
We talked about this the other day.
No, it was in passing, and I didn't know you watched it on television.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Not all the time, but sometimes.
Is that really a thing?
Yes. Cricket's a big deal in India.
Hard to...
I don't know if that's news or big deal.
Well, you were something else.
You
still mad about Sunday or what?
No, I'm fine. I mean, listen, you texted me before the Creighton game on Sunday, and you're like, "Yeah, I'm a little concerned about how it's going to go."
I just wasn't feeling. I didn't like the match.
You didn't like the matchup. I didn't like.
I hate the matchup.
It's a bad matchup.
I don't like it because it's the same reason I don't like Marquette.
Yeah.
Right. You got a wing that's going to give you buckets.
Mm-hmm.
You got a point guard that can read two-man game, and Oduro can play away from the basket.
Yeah, athletic big that can draw Kalkbrenner out.
And
which St. John's didn't really have that part of the equation.
But they hit. Coach Mack is willing to concede mid-range jump shots.
Yeah.
St. John's is capable of making a ton.
St. John's wants and will take and make a ton of mid-range.
And the thing that I didn't like the most is they have a player that is playing really well. Like he's on a little bit of a
Jenkins.
Yes.
Yeah, he's getting buckets.
So that's what I didn't like. And because at no point, Ravi, and I'm telling you, I told you this ahead of time and this morning. I don't buy the letdown thing.
See, and I do.
That's fine.
Why don't you buy it? Let's get there first.
Well, number one, you address it as a staff.
Okay.
You have a top 10 coach in the country.
Fair.
He's really, really, really good at what he does.
He is.
Do you think he didn't talk about letdown?
I absolutely think he did.
Okay. You're in Madison Square Garden.
Yep.
Is that kind of a mecca?
That's what people tell me.
Okay. You want to validate who you are, right? Mm-hmm. That's your culture.
Sure.
Okay. You got every opportunity to go out there and do that against St. John.
Yep.
You want the kicker? You have an old team.
You do.
Old.
You do.
You realistically could lose 98% of your production next year.
Minimum.
Okay.
Minimum, yeah.
Yeah, but so I'm not. There's just opportunities. It isn't letdown versus non-letdown. And don't let a good team off the hook.
Off the hook how?
Because this goes along with almost anything that I talk about that makes me mad.
Okay.
Because we speak it into existence, we act like it's the thing, right? The second guy gets called. I've gone through this 1,000 times just because we say it. No team's got a road win. For the metrics, just because we say it doesn't make it so. It's low-hanging fruit to say it's a trap game or a letdown game. Because here's the thing. If 2,000 people say it's a letdown game and it still sneaks up on you as a letdown game, it's not a letdown game.
What is it then?
You just didn't play well. You ran into a team yesterday that played their rear ends off.
Sure.
Right? You got to figure out, you got a case of the Baylors here the last couple games. I don't think he's going to trend that way.
I would hope not.
You were a little disjointed on offense.
So let me ask you this, okay? Because I get what you're saying. I do. So tell me what this is if it's not a letdown, okay? Because I think this is a plausible scenario.
Okay.
And if it's not a letdown, redefine it for me, okay? I think it's entirely possible. First of all, I think the margin of error for this team athletically is very small. This is not an overly athletic team. And I think when you run into a team with size and athleticism on the perimeter, especially, you don't have a ton of margin of error in terms of your execution.
That wasn't really it, though.
Well, hold on. Let me get there.
When a team that turns the ball over
Mm-hmm.
doesn't turn the ball over, and you're a defense that doesn't force turnovers, that's a recipe for a bad day.
It is, but also
for whatever the reason, St. John's didn't turn the ball over yesterday.
I'm not even
But
talking.
they do, though.
I'm not even talking about the turnovers. And stuff, though.
But I'm giving you a facet of the perfect storm other than what you're getting ready to lay out for me.
I'm talking about their execution offensively and defensively, which I didn't think was good enough. Fair?
Okay.
This is a very different level of execution than we saw on Tuesday against UConn. Is that fair?
Yeah.
They
had some tough shots again. I even said this real time to you during the game. Some of those shots were tough early. I'm like, I don't know if they can make a living hit. Yes,
absolutely. Some of the shots they hit early against UConn were not quality shots. They weren't good shots. They just made them. That kind of kept them in it until they found their rhythm.
What if you just simply give Kalkbrenner more touches?
That would be lovely. I would be okay with that. But again, oftentimes when they feel themselves a little bit more than they should, they get away from the thing that equalizes their up and down performances on shooting the basketball. Kalkbrenner equalizes everything for that team, both offensively and defensively, because he negates their inability to maybe hit a gap and penetrate on offense, right? Because you still compromise the defense by getting the ball in the paint to Kalkbrenner. You don't have to break a guy off from the perimeter and have Ashworth get in the lane or have Trey get in the lane or have Baylor get in the lane because Kalkbrenner's already there, right? That compromises the defense in the exact same way that penetration does, or close enough.
Okay.
That you can use that as a substitute for penetration if you're struggling with that. Creighton sometimes gets away from that. I don't know if it's because they overlook it. I don't know if they think, hey, we had all this success against UConn. I don't know the reason.
So you literally think you're going to convince me that,
I mean, I don't think I'm going to convince you, but
there, in retrospect, yesterday was somehow related to how they think about what was going on against UConn?
I think they thought they executed at such a high level against UConn. And I don't listen, maybe not consciously.
Wow.
Listen, if you go out and you put it on the number one team,
but you're selling
Hold
them
on.
short.
How am I doing that? How am I selling them short?
Because I think they're aware. That's a really good basketball team. Do you think this snuck up on them?
I think they have to be so dialed in to beat teams that are more athletic than them on the perimeter.
I don't know about that.
I that's what I think. Because we've seen this more than once. This isn't an outlier with St. John's. And maybe that's your argument that it's not a letdown game. But I think mentally they have to be so on point with their execution because they are a little bit lacking on length and athleticism on the perimeter that anytime they're not dialed in at least 90% on their execution, then they're in a lot of danger against teams like this.
Let's get to Jesse real quick before we get to Mike DeCourcy.
On the War Horse Sportsbook Hotline, we got Jesse on the line. What's going on, Jesse?
Jesse?
Hey, guys. I agree with both of you a little bit. Ravi, I'm glad you started talking about athleticism because that's where it goes to. I agree with Damon. I don't think at this level letdowns and trap games exist. And it bothers me even when people talk about in the NFL. It's like, come on. These are professionals.
You're at the end of February.
Right. I mean, and how many of these guys on this roster, let's be realistic, how many of them are collecting paychecks? Like, legit, right? You're a professional, and you're in one of the elite conferences in the country. Every single night, you got to show up. And all we ask as fans is beat the teams you should beat, play tough against the teams where you probably shouldn't, and there's a part of me, when I was thinking about this as St. John's was just giving it to them, there's a part of me that wondered, would I have felt better losing to UConn and beating St. John's? I don't know. Because it's like we shouldn't have beat UConn, but, man, we should beat St. John's every time out. And, yeah, it's the athleticism.
Jesse, do you know how many assists? Do you know how many assists St. John's had as a team?
I have no clue.
24. You know how many times they turned it over?
3.
Not a whole lot.
Will you take an 8-to-1 assist to turnover ratio?
Not on defense.
That's crazy, man.
Jesse,
That's not a letdown.
Appreciate the call. We have got Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News up next here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Gary taking it home. 2 on the board for Gary. Gives the Huskers their largest lead of the night at 13. Huskers on the move in transition. Williams to Gary for 3.
Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. That's DB. I'm Ravi, Lulla. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube as well. Joining us now on the Warhorse Sportsbook hotline is Mike DeCourcy. He covers college hoops for, well, just about everybody, but Sporting News, Big Ten Network, Fox Sports as well. Mike, how are you this morning?
I am well this morning. How are you guys?
Good. Quick turnaround for you, Mike. Getting out of the studio last night, and I apologize for us getting you out of bed and ready to go, man.
No,
but I appreciate it.
I'm on my way home. So it's just fine.
Mike, so let's start with Nebraska basketball. Obviously, they finally got the road win against Indiana last week. They wrap up their week with a convincing win against Minnesota. I know you do some brackets as well. How confident are you in Nebraska being on the right side of the bubble this morning?
Oh, this morning, as confident as one could be. I would say certain is not an unfair description this morning. All they have to do is not do anything really awful now. And the problem for them is that losing most of what's left. They have 3 regular season games, and they probably shouldn't lose any of them. If they lost at Ohio State, it wouldn't be the worst because it is a quad 1 game, and Michigan State and Purdue have both lost that game in the last 8 days. So it wouldn't be the worst, but it would be nice for them to get a road win. Another road win to add to that, and that would be a quad 1 road win, and it could do wonders for their seeding. But I think if they win the other 2, that should be less daunting than the trip to Ohio State. I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, and I think you win the games you can win, and they've done a really good job of just attacking the schedule that's in front of them. But like just for laughs and giggles, there's no real advantage. Let's say moving off the 10 line, right? I mean, you don't really want to be a 9. You don't want to be an 8 either. So it's like
you're not.
So unless you're going to jump to a 7, I feel like I'm okay with maybe a potential 10 seed, which is where I think smart guys like yourself have Nebraska probably currently, right?
Yes, there's absolute truth to that. Like I said, kind of the good news in that scenario is that if you do win those 3 games or 2 of the 3, you probably aren't moving up much anyway. I think I'm going to have them as a 9 in the seed list that I present today. I think I will, but it's going to be somewhere between those 2. I mean, you're like the last 9 of the first 10, and I can do a pretty good job of approximating them, but there are 10, 11 people in that room. You never know for sure how they're going to vote. But to me, there's no way at this stage that they would be left out. The way they're playing and how connected they are and how veteran they are and how tough-minded they are, I have a hard time seeing them lose 2 of the 3 or all 3 of the remaining regular season games.
Ravi and I were having a discussion earlier this morning, Mike, about how maybe even locally and certainly nationally, because just of the depth, the macro versus micro, Hoiberg, he should get a ton of credit for how he put this team together. They play with some joy. They like one another. The roles fluctuate. It's hard to pinpoint the guy, and they still seem to continue to evolve. Like, are we underselling the job he did putting this team together?
Oh, I hope not. I think he's a great candidate for Big Ten Coach of the Year.
There we go.
I think he's a really strong candidate. I'm not going to make any declarations. I don't vote for Big Ten Coach of the Year. I do vote through the AP for the all-conference teams, but I don't have a vote for Coach or Player of the Year. So I think the Player of the Year award is probably going to be pretty easy to figure. But the Coach of the Year, always a challenge to know exactly where that's going to go. But I think he's done an amazing job. I talked last night on Big Ten Basketball and Beyond and on some of our other shows about how this turnaround that has happened this year for Nebraska basketball really began last February. And I think I pinpointed it to February 11th that they won a game that Casey went off, and it really started to head in this direction, and they wound up winning 5 of their final 6 regular season games. And then they did bow out quickly in the Big Ten tournament, which was a little disappointing because they played so well. But that set this up. And then he added some really good pieces. And the beauty of this team, and what I really like about it, is that the pieces he added they were obviously given great consideration to how they would fit. It's not just, okay, he averaged 12 points a game and shot 40% from 3, so so we need him. No, it was more than that. It was, how is this player going to fit into what we want to be? And you don't see that very often, and you certainly don't see it work as often or as beautifully. Often you don't see it work as beautifully as it has for the Huskers this year.
I love how you I love how you kind of put that together, because we were talking this morning, and Jawan Gary, right? The evolution. Yeah, he's pretty underappreciated maybe on a national level. We love him here, but even a guy like my favorite that gets overlooked is a guy like Bryce. And Bryce, his temperament has to be complementary to how Nebraska plays. He's kind of a low maintenance, doesn't need a babysitter. He's an efficient guy. He's okay with us not talking about him a ton. Same as, like, let's say a Gary can evolve offensively when he knows. We used to only talk about his defense. Like, their ability to know who they are, I think, is grossly undervalued.
Yeah, I mean, they have great role definition, and what they do really well is that they find the weakness in the defense relative to what their particular strengths are. If it's a team that's going to be punished by Jawan getting in the lane and causing havoc, then that's sort of the emphasis for that game. And they don't have a true first option, but they also don't have a true fifth option. They don't have many rotations where you say, don't throw the ball at that guy. That's a real strength for this team. They can evolve according to what you don't do well. And yesterday, we've seen Rink Math have some problems with dynamic shot blockers on occasion, guys like Cliff Amore and Julian Reese. And so with the way Pharrell Payne had been playing, it looked like a matchup that might be problematic. So what did they do? Well, they always set Rink at the top of the key because he can shoot from there and because he can pass out of the post as well or pass out of the high post. And so what they saw very quickly yesterday was that when he put the ball on the floor, Minnesota's defense became unraveled. Payne was not comfortable with that. And right away, his great physical strength and dynamism were muted because the ball was on the floor and it was moving. And that really opened up the offense for the Huskers. So there were there's just a lot of different ways that they can beat you. And there was that time when Casey had a tough stretch and it coincided with the Huskers not playing as well. But they can go games now without Casey going for 20 or whatever. They still take it if he's on. And they'll still try to work it when it presents itself because he's terrific. But if it's not there that night because the opposing defense has decided that's not how they're going to lose, then they can go away from it and they can still win.
We're talking with Mike DeCourcy of the Sporting News. Mike, you mentioned, you thought that the Big Ten Player of the Year is probably all wrapped up, and that makes sense. But let's take Zach Edey out of the discussion. Who have you been most impressed by on an individual basis from a Big Ten team this year?
Probably Boo Buie because there's so much weight on him. It's a program that still has only made 2 NCAA tournaments in its history. And that is going to try to make the second consecutive NCAA tournament for the first time ever. They did not handle that opportunity well in 2018 because they came back with nearly everybody from the 17 team that not only got to the tournament but played really well once they were there. And then they kind of just regressed. So there was a lot of pressure on this team with bringing back, again, a lot, but not everybody from last year's season. And to try to back it up. And then after the Dayton win early, and then they played really well in the league early, and then it became apparent that it was possible. So there was a lot of pressure on Boo, a lot of weight, and he stood up to it really beautifully. And then, of course, with the loss of Ty Berry a week or two ago, now it's back even more because they've got one less double figure scoring option on a team that didn't have many. And he has handled that. They've gotten other guys to step up, Ryan Langborg in particular. But it still all falls to Boo beginning to end, and he's handled it just beautiful.
Mike, do you feel like if you had to cap a team, do you feel like you have a better handle on Illinois or Michigan State?
Oh, I don't understand Michigan State. I'll be frank. I don't. I don't understand them at all. Illinois, I don't have a hard time really understanding. I know what they are. They're a team full of dynamic. Basically, it's 5 dynamic wings. Just one of them happens to be 6'11", 6'10", and they play out of that. They don't have any real point guard, so one guy has to handle the ball at any particular time, and that player has to try to make plays. And they're all, Damask is very good at it. Shannon is very good at making plays for himself. He's not selfish, but he's not a creator. And of course, we've seen Coleman Hawkins do magical things for a 6'11" guy, 6'10" guy from that position, creating. Some of the passes he threw on Saturday in their victory were ridiculous, and some were just beautiful in terms of their awareness. But they have a lot of guys that can do that. And Hawkins sometimes vexes me. His game against Penn State, I talked about
especially
it on
late
last night. Yeah, I mean, he made 3 massive errors in the final 35, 40 seconds, and 2 of them were totally avoidable, I should say, and the other was missing a couple of free throws, one of which might have won the game. But the mistakes he made in that game, and I'll give Brad Underwood a lot of credit. One, he made it clear to Coleman that you're a great player, you can't be doing these things, and Coleman responded with the best game of his career on Saturday. And then the other thing that I was really impressed by with Brad Underwood on Saturday was Nico Moretti came in early in the second half and played great.
He wrote it.
And instead of just saying, yeah, exactly. Instead of just saying, well, okay, we got some nice minutes out of Nico, let's go back to what we always do.
Yeah.
And they said, hey, and he never took him out.
Yeah.
I don't think he got a rest. I think he remained in the rotation in the lineup the entire rest of the game, and he played really solidly on defense. And he made a couple of shots, and he made a free throw, and they win the game. And I really respected that from Brad because I think sometimes coaches are, they go by what they've done always, and especially at this time of year, always doesn't get you as far as it can.
Mike, I'm curious about Purdue at the top of the league. Obviously, they've had a great regular season, bouncing back from their early tournament exit last year. They've got, the odds-on favorite for not just Big East Player of the Year, but National Player of the Year. Do you think they're constructed in a way that would allow them to make a deep tournament run, at least give them a better chance for that than they had obviously last year?
Yeah, I think it's obvious the key to that is Lance Jones. He gives them a second ball handler. I won't go so far as to call Lance a creator, but Lance can get himself a shot. And he's a willing passer. If anybody's obviously open, he'll throw it to them when he gets on the move. But yeah, I don't think he's a true creator. But he, like I said, he'll make a play when it's obviously available because somebody overcommits to him. He is a consistent shooter. If you look at his season numbers, I haven't looked lately, but they're not overwhelming. But if you look since January 1, since we resumed Big Ten play, they're much better, which is impressive because there's no bye games in there. Mm-hmm. There's no easy games in there. It's all Big Ten competition. And his 3-point numbers are much better in that stretch. So I would suspect that will carry over into March. So I do think they are better constructed in that sense. Plus, Braden Smith is a year older as the point guard, and he's having a tremendous season. I still want to see better, more aggressive basketball out of Fletcher Lawyer. We saw more aggressive yesterday at Michigan, which was good. Still missed a couple of shots you'd like him to make, but he was willing to take them. He went through a stretch of 5 games in which he was 1 of 7 from 3. And I told Rayfel Davis on the set on Saturday, I said, I'm not bothered by the 1. I'm bothered by the 7. I mean, he was passing up open shots, and they just can't have that. They need the space that the threat of that shot provides. And if you're going to walk away from shots, then they're not going to honor them. They're just going to stay home and keep the ball from getting into Edie.
Mike, let me ask you on the national scale. Last week, kind of the question revolved around the worst team that could win a national championship in basketball. And let me phrase it a different way and kind of narrow it down about level of buy-in. If you had to decide today, like rapid fire, would you take Kansas or FAU?
Kansas or Florida Atlantic?
Yeah.
Like what, to win one game?
To advance, to make a run in March once the dance starts.
I'm not a big believer in Florida Atlantic. I think they had a nice run last year. It was a beautiful run, and what they achieved was singularly beautiful. But They should have not won their first game because the refs blew a timeout call. I don't know if you guys saw it, but
those T-shirts.
Those T-shirts were awesome. I loved it. It's the T-shirts, for those who weren't watching, said we called a timeout because they were on the floor with the ball, try to call a timeout. The ref didn't grant it, and then they ended up in a tie-up, and the arrow favored Florida Atlantic, and they were able to conjure the winning basket. So Memphis is still bitter about that. Because FAU wound up in the Final Four, and Memphis had to go home after a game that they might have won otherwise.
All right, Tennessee or Arizona?
I trust Tennessee more. I think they're much better offensively now that Dalton Connect is a part of their group. He's having a tremendous season. I've seen Caleb Love shoot teams in and out of games now for 3 years, and that's the reality.
I'm a diehard Carolina fan. That's why I chuckle.
Yeah, there you go. As well as anybody. I mean, honest to goodness, I can't remember whether it was I was at a regional or the Final Four last year, and on Friday, I think it was Armando Bacot announced he was coming back to Carolina, and on Saturday, R.J. Davis announced he was coming back to Carolina, and I said immediately, well, we know Caleb Love is leaving. We don't know
All right, last one from me, and right aforementioned. Carolina or Duke?
Oh, wow. That's a tough one. That really is.
Duke's freshmen are playing better. They kind of scare me now than the last week.
Yeah. Assuming Filipowski is healthy, I think that the offense, the variety of offense that Duke has, gives me a little bit more confidence. What prevents me from thinking that they could win a championship? I think Carolina could win it, possibly. Not likely, but possibly. But I don't think Duke can, because Carolina can protect the rim. Duke can't. But if you're asking me who goes farther, I think Duke probably does. But again, it all comes down to draw. There's somebody out there who takes advantage of Duke's inability or weakness at protecting the rim? We saw Duke go down to Pitt go down to Cameron and take advantage of that a few weeks ago. So we saw, to a lesser extent, Wake do it on Saturday. So we know it's possible for really good, solid teams to do that. But I do like Duke's offense as much as nearly anybody's in the country.
We're talking with Mike DeCourcy of the Sporting News. Mike, you mentioned Filipowski, so I've got to bring up the court storming issue. Obviously, it's become a much more, I guess, hot button topic here between Caitlin Clark and Kyle Filipowski, both kind of having incidents this season. Is there a good way in your mind to either prevent this from happening or make it safer, or what's? I mean, I think everybody kind of agrees, like, hey, this isn't ideal, but what's the solution?
Well, I know that it makes me, a get off my lawn guy, but look, I go to games. I'm not just a sports journalist. I go to games all the time. I pay for my seat, and I am entitled to celebrate at my seat, if my team happens to win. And I don't know that I'm entitled to celebrate there until 3 a.m., but I mean, I think a reasonable amount of time to celebrate, and maybe, but I'm not entitled to be on the floor. You're not. They don't even show guys or ladies who run onto the field now on television to discourage the practice. But then we encourage the practice by showing on television the court storms. I don't get that. I don't think it's an essential part of the college basketball experience. And I say that because I've been to Allen Fieldhouse and on multiple occasions. And for me, Allen Fieldhouse is as good a place to go as there is to watch a basketball game. It's the best. And so, like, they don't storm there ever. I would bet you that, like, they haven't stormed there since Fog Allen was coaching himself. And yet it's magical. I don't remember a court storm at Purdue. Mackey Arena is phenomenal to be at. So I just don't think it's necessary for college basketball to be wonderful, or for the students to have a wonderful time. I think they're having a wonderful time in Fog Allen in their student section as much as anybody in the country. It's just kind of become this habit thing, kind of like the handshake line, the thing we do. And it's not, there's not really any significance to it other than this is my shot to get on TV and take a selfie and put it on Instagram. And I just don't think that's an essential part of the college basketball experience. I think the players are much more an important part of the college basketball experience, them being healthy and on the floor, whether it's Caitlin Clark, Kyle Filipowski, or anybody else.
Mm. Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News. Mike, we appreciate your time as always, and hopefully we'll catch up again soon.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
That's Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News. You can also find him on Big Ten Network as a studio analyst and his brackets on foxsports.com.
Brackets?
I agree with him in general. I don't know how to stop it.
Yeah, I'm consistent because I said this with Kate and Clark, and I believe this with I've seen all the angles, and I was surprised that the ACC network was the one that first released the over.
You think he flopped a little bit?
It doesn't matter.
Oh, okay.
Right? Because I always just try to put myself in that situation, right?
Sure.
Like if that was me and
as the player, you mean?
Right.
Yeah.
And somebody's coming towards me,
mm-hmm.
my natural response would be to
kind of bow up a little bit.
I would probably use my hands. Maybe if I lean back, like my leg may come out.
I'd probably do a little forearm to keep my distance.
Yeah, I just don't want to get into the habit of critiquing that. Like just the same thing I said about Caitlin Clark. Like, well, you may say she was hit this hard or not hit that hard.
That doesn't
Do I
matter.
think both people were trying to avoid said player? 100% I do.
Yeah.
I think both in Columbus and at Wake, I think they were trying to go around.
Mm-hmm.
Problem is how did we get here?
Yeah, I guess
so. So I'm kind of anti. I want to make sure that it doesn't happen. You don't
want to be in that scenario in the first place.
Yeah, I don't care about the specifics necessarily.
Well, I guess the specifics are important to me because if we're trying to get something to stop, we need to know how that happens, right? And
access, it's pretty easy.
No, but when you're talking about a certain number of students versus a certain number of security guards, there's a practical thing there that the numbers don't add up.
Oh, you could put protocol in place.
In what? Like what sense?
I don't know. You want them to move or?
You want who to move? The students?
Yeah.
To where? Where do you want to move them to?
So, like, you don't think? Why don't more people have access to the field at sporting events?
I'm not saying they should have access.
No. Why do you think you act like it's a numbers or proximity thing? Like, why do you think more sporting events don't have fans that can access the field? It's called security.
Right, yeah.
Okay, so that's where you start.
So you just want more security?
Do you have any other option?
No, I get it. I'm just saying you're talking about a lot of people. Like you're having to
is 8 grade. You know, a perfect example. We'll get to it on the other end. I'll tell you what Coach Rule did.
More Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Nemhard to Hickman, sets the pitch, puts it up, puts it in.
Gonzaga looking hot here in the latter parts of the regular season.
We're halfway through the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. And we're live from the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. A reminder, it's time for you to get ready for a game-changing experience with the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. Omaha's premier sports bar is now hiring at La Vista and Gretna locations. If you haven't heard, more than just a sports bar. Elevated pub fare, handcrafted pizzas, diverse range of craft spirits and classic cocktails, live events and shows. There's something for everyone at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. Currently, they're hiring for all positions at both locations. So join the team today and be a part of that excitement. You can visit in person all this week between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. at the Gretna location for on-the-spot interviews and hiring, or you can visit hurrdatsportsbar.com/careers to apply. Make every game day unforgettable at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill, where sports, food, fun, and live entertainment come together. So we were getting into the conversation about court storming here a little bit with Mike DeCourcy at the end of that conversation there. And I agree that it's not a good situation. I agree they need to do something. I don't know what that looks like, just being totally honest. I don't know if they need to construct some sort of physical barrier that makes it harder to get on the floor.
Yeah.
Because I think that's why you don't see it as much at football games, right? It's harder to get to the field in general. For most fans, it's harder to get to the field in football games. Not to say we don't see it still sometimes, but it's way more common in basketball because you're right there, right? I mean, getting to the floor in basketball is way easier than getting on the field in football. So I don't know if they need to construct something. I don't know if it is just a matter of, hey, you got to invest in 2-3 times as many security guards and just make it not an option.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what the answer is.
So I'm not sure either, like right off the top, but I do know added presence matters.
Sure. Even if it's like, because I think you're right. The visibility of security.
Just the optics matters.
Even if it's like, hey, there's still like 3,000 of us and 30 of them, 30 looks like a lot more daunting than 8, right?
Yeah, and sometimes I think you have to meet people right where they're at.
Okay.
Right? So if people momentarily want to lose their minds, you may have to treat people as though they're not in their right frame of mind.
Okay.
And if everybody knows that going in, that may deter behavior.
That's fair.
Right? If you want to act this way, I'm going to treat you accordingly.
Now, I will say, I think part of the problem is rather than deterring court storming, it seems like places sort of prepare for it. I mean, I know at Creighton on Tuesday, they were prepared for a court storming, and they sort of more or less opened the floodgates, and nobody got hurt or anything that I'm aware of. So that kind of is what it is. And, nothing happened. So you think it's okay. And listen, I don't know if Kyle Filipowski's hurt. I don't know if he's actually hurt. Caitlin Clark obviously was okay. But the fact of the matter is you're putting a lot of people in a not ideal situation.
Right.
Right. And so sooner or later, whether either of those two are actually hurt or not, sooner or later, you're probably going to end up with a consequence you don't want.
So I think people, and I just don't want to hear people make the argument, well, we didn't care when it was Caitlin Clark. We do because it was Filipowski and Duke. Here's the thing that I think makes it just a little different.
Okay.
Wake Forest clearly dropped the ball.
Oh, with the security?
The game wasn't even over yet.
Yeah. That's a problem.
That right there is like, you don't even have the protocol in place. Even if you want, like,
yes. That's totally fair.
So I think that, so when people see that and you keep seeing all these replays of the clock and then where Filipowski was, and then people go over and over, it's more than has drawn the ire because of the actual game situation. Like, it seemed a lot more chaotic.
Yeah, because when the buzzer goes off, typically, like Creighton, even if you don't think they should have stormed the court, Creighton did a good job. They sort of like partitioned off the benches, kept fans away from the benches, gave both UConn and Creighton kind of an exit strategy to get out of there without being caught up in. I think they actually roped off the benches at Creighton, if I saw correctly. That, again, maybe you still don't want people on the court, but if people are getting on the court before the game's even over, you eliminate the possibility to even give those opportunities or those considerations an opportunity to take place, right?
Yeah.
And so, yes, the Wake Forest thing is a different beast in this whole thing.
And I get it. People are gonna be mad at Filipowski because he insinuated. Well, I mean, did he say targeted? Yeah.
No, he said it was intentional.
Yeah.
I mean, he just came out and said it.
Because what it looked like, it did look like the student was trying to avoid.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know. And it's an overhead, and then there's another one. And then I was like, man, am I really going to get into the weeds of breaking down this film?
Yeah,
to
going
justify
all Zapruder film on the, yeah.
I've been on the grassy lawn. No. There's a joke in there. Oh, Johnny Bishop. I just don't want folks to be in that situation. And I can separate that from not liking what Filipowski had to say about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Right.
Like,
do I think he was probably in his feels a little bit?
100%.
I mean, like, I was targeted.
I can.
But that doesn't mean it was a good situation for him to be in the first place.
Correct.
I agree with you there. Like, it is
correct.
Both things can be true at the same
two
time.
things can be true at once.
Was Filipowski probably not in his total right, not in the right in what he said? Sure. Was the situation a bad place to be in the first place? Absolutely.
Yeah, so anybody that's been to Nebraska home games in the last year,
yeah, you brought this up.
You know what you've noticed? Significantly more security, and it is much, much more difficult to access Nebraska's bench area.
Yeah.
Whether it's, 4 more sheriffs, the way that they have the gate structure set up. Like, it's a free-for-all.
Did something lead to that? Like, did something happen?
Yeah. I think Coach Rule felt like they were just too accessible.
Okay.
Especially before. I mean, you're talking about a guy, like, if you're in, not even pregame, I'm talking about, like, warm-ups to the warm-ups. There's no phones. You got to wear a certain amount you got to wear the certain kind of gear. Like, it's not a free-for-all. If
you're talking like a couple hours before the game.
If you're going to be on that field, there's a way that you're going to conduct business on that field.
Fair.
And I think he wanted to tighten that up. And I don't want to do it a disservice because I may be exaggerating the numbers, but he and I talked about this, and he said, when you guys were here, you probably had, I don't know the number he said, X amount. He said now we've probably tripled that. And I believe him because, ask any of the guys that cover recruiting.
Yeah.
It's not just a free-for-all down there. Like, it is tough.
Well,
and so I think a lot of that is for security purposes. And you got to remember, I know you said football is much more difficult, and it is, but there are some of these states, we've seen young ladies fall through the hedges in Georgia.
Sure.
We've seen people just climb down the walls. The only time I can ever remember, like, fearing for my safety was in a blowout down in Oklahoma.
What happened?
The crowds on the walk where we had to go through whatever they call the section along the grass outside the field in Norman was a little scary. And if I wouldn't have been with I was with the guy Jay Noddle and his son, and it was hectic, and it was like we blew a lead, right? But it was nasty, and people were everywhere, right? And it was just like, and I just remember him saying, "Well, we won't be parking here again," you know what I mean? Because we had to like. And so I'm not super familiar. I remember a time at Lawrence, I felt like could have gotten
away from it
a little out of hand.
Yeah.
Because right after the game, there were just like fans already down there, and I'm like, how'd you guys get here so quick? No, part of it is their setup. It looks like a nice community park.
Yeah.
In Lawrence, like it's a different kind of setup, but I mean in Norman at half in Stillwater, like those fans they're from me to this wall from me.
Yeah, that's fair.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there are places that are kind of like that.
There are certain setups.
You go by the student section in Iowa.
Yeah.
There's probably 6 feet difference. It's close.
There's certain area.
Now they added some additions in Madison.
Yeah.
Right in that end zone
to make it a little.
It's not as close, but it's not as far as you think.
Yeah, that's fair. Coming up next, I do want to get into some college football playoff stuff that we didn't get to last week. We'll wrap up hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Welcome back to Hurrdat Sports Radio here on AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube as well. Want to tell you about our friends at the Omaha Supernovas. They got a big W last night. They were on the road against the Orlando Valkyries. They won 3-1, matching the score here in Omaha. They go on the road to the Atlanta Vibe on Thursday, but they return home on March 14th. That's just a couple weeks from now, against that same Atlanta Vibe team, but this time it'll be here at the CHI Health Center, 7 p.m. Thursday, March 14th. Make sure you get to supernovas.com. You can check out their schedule, get tickets, maybe shop around a little bit, get some merch. That is supernovas.com.
Beware of the Ides of March. I think that was
You big
March
Julius
15th.
Caesar guy?
No, not really.
Historical reference or the Shakespeare play? No, neither one.
I just think the 14th is close to the 15th, and I wanted to weave in a beware of the supernovas, but then I was like, doing too much.
Technically, the Ides of March are the 14th through the 16th. It's like a period of time. It's not just the one day. So, in case you wanted to, just a little.
Are you not entertained?
I'm very entertained, but now you want to be specific. 90% of the time, you're very general and a little loosey-goosey with the goalposts.
What is
now we're very specific,
what
and we're going to hammer me on the 14th as opposed. How about just giving your boy a little bit of credit? Like, dang, DB, that's pretty good that you know the Ides of March.
Hey, good call on the Ides of March. Well done.
No, I'm not just another non-pretty face, you know. Jeez.
What are you talking about? Me being general and moving the goalposts? I'm very specific. What?
Told me.
What?
I'm not gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it.
It is, you mentioned this during the break. It is NFL Combine week. It's a big week for your boy. Love the Combine.
Me too.
Love the Combine.
Shane, note to self for our guests. We are. Listen, I record the gosh darn thing.
Oh, I watch a ton of it. I love the Combine. Great stuff.
So, would you run?
If I was, so you asked me this in the break. If I was a first round pick, would I run? And I think it depends. It depends on your situation, right? Like Marvin Harrison Jr. probably doesn't have a lot to gain from running, right? He's going to go super high regardless. His tape speaks for itself. If he runs a slow time, they'll be like, yeah, but look at the tape. If he runs a super fast time, they'll be like, yeah, we already knew he was a freak. What does Marvin Harrison Jr. have to gain from that situation? Not much. But if you're Cooper DeJean, maybe kind of a borderline first round pick, especially coming off the injury. And listen, I think this is a real factor here.
I think DeJean is spectacular.
I do too. But he is also trying to play a position in the NFL that people that look like him often don't play. And whether that's fair or not, he probably needs to put up a good time to solidify, like, yeah, I'm athletic enough to be a corner in the NFL. Is that fair? Like, am I making that up?
Gosh, to be honest, like you seriously are catching me off guard. Because at no point did I, if anybody would tell you, it would be.
Yeah.
Like I would tell
but
you.
I'm just saying, we haven't had a white corner in the NFL since Jason Sehorn. That's the truth. That's real.
Okay.
So and most of these guys get moved to safety from college to the NFL.
Yeah, I don't know if he's big enough.
I don't think he's a true corner. Like he is a true corner.
I just like him because I think he's really good.
I agree. But I think it's possible there's a perception of him among NFL talent evaluators that want to see the time to justify, like, hey, yep, he is athletic enough, which we all know doesn't always matter either. Like Richard Sherman runs a 4.6 and is
and
a
we
great
just
corner.
Knew it was like a foot injury. They didn't really. Did I miss where there was?
I don't think they got real specific on what it was. So part of it is, hey, you want to make sure he's healthy.
I remember when Nebraska played Iowa in that pregame. Sharp is really good at like going through the reports, and DeJean wasn't on there. So we were like, "No way, he's coming back."
Yeah.
So and I remember it's probably more me than him because he's like, "No, that's such and such. He's a wide receiver." And I was like, "I think that's DeJean,"
right?
Because I could have sworn I saw two. But of course,
wasn't
he correct? No, I mean
that's fair. Somebody's got to keep you in line.
Well, he's a little more savvy than your guy, right? I'm over here looking at like 1,000 different things.
But if I'm Cooper, I probably need to run. If you're healthy,
well, at some
whether
point.
it's combine, whether it's pro day,
at some point
he's going to need to put a time down.
Yeah, I'm glad you're a combine guy.
I love the combine. I think it's a ton of fun.
I think and you know the funny thing, I can say that I think it's extremely overrated.
Oh, yeah. I don't know that it matters, but I like it a lot.
But I still like it.
Yeah. I like seeing the times. I really, I know everybody loves the 40s. 40s are fun.
Couldn't care less.
I like the broad jumps a lot. I feel like you learn a lot about the guy's explosiveness and the broad jumps.
Two guys from UConn having the highest standing broad jumps.
Yeah. I don't, that's, you
I think Byron Jones went 12.
Which 12 is a stupid number.
And I think I
don't think that's how you pronounce it.
Went 12.5. But I think the top two guys are Connecticut guys.
That'll be the broad jump's fun to see. I like the vert a little bit.
The furthest
but the drills are fun too.
The furthest I saw in person was Jamel Williams.
How far?
I think he went 11.1.
That's aggressive.
I think he went 11.1.
You start getting in the 11s. You're talking about freak show stuff.
Mike Mint went 10.9, and I was like, what? And he was right before me.
Yeah. Do you remember where you went?
10.4.
That's good. It's a good number.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
It's okay. Listen.
My 10 was good, which is also
10-yard split.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's fine. But
Got that short area quickness.
Yes.
Yeah.
Jamel, like that was the furthest I'd seen in person.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was explosive.
There was,
especially for his little wiry frame.
Yeah, you don't always get that out of
long
those
legs,
builds.
long arms. I'm like,
although sometimes they can kind of coil up.
Who's this guy? Mike Powell?
You know what I mean? They kind of coil and release the energy.
Yeah.
No, I like the drills though too. People sleep on the drills,
so they're kind of getting better.
Yeah, some of them are.
They're, I don't always love. I like watching D-line. I like watching the linebackers, but it's funny, and not to cite another Coach Rule reference, but like on the recruiting trail, the staff we were talking to some of our players.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd had this conversation with Christian. This is probably in January, and we're going to start doing some defensive install and stuff this week. And, I was asking about playing on the strong side versus the weak side, or, maybe playing inside. And I told him this. I said, to the best of our ability, we'll try to help you out to play the long game.
Mm-hmm.
But first and foremost, we want to win games currently.
Yeah.
So he was like, I want to keep working on because he and I, we've worked really, really hard on coverage.
Mm-hmm.
And we asked him to do a lot, which is part of the transition from him going to the 4-3 to the 3-4 last year.
Mm-hmm.
And we were talking about games and stuff like that. And Coach Rule had the whole staff in, and he said, I'm just going to tell you, because we were talking about getting guys ready for the pros and their track record and their ability to identify talent, which I loved as a recruiting pitch.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I'll tell you one thing that we're going to need to be able to do is I think if you want to play for a long time in this league, you got to be able to play some man-to-man and cover man-to-man.
Mm-hmm.
And, Christian kind of lit up in his seat and stuff like that. And you can tell how that's one group at the combines whose drills I think have changed.
Linebackers?
Much more functional
mm-hmm.
for how I think linebackers
how the game's actually played.
Yeah. Actually have to. I can't say the same linemen still do some silly stuff. Offensive linemen in particular still do some silly stuff. I don't know how much I love, and no disrespect to Michael Severe because he loves the gauntlet drill for wide receivers. Mm-hmm. I don't know how applicable that is to I
don't know how much you learn about that
football, but I do think the linebacking group is one group that I enjoy watching.
I really enjoy the 3-cone drill.
Oh, that's a good drill.
I like getting some 3-cone.
So I think of the force against the ground, like the foot stuff,
mm-hmm.
that's just a drill. I think 3-cone may be one of the better indicators.
I would say I think you learn the most about how a guy is going to translate to football in a 3-cone or a 10-yard. Like just the straight 10-yard dash, because that's going to be a lot. You're going to do that a lot more in football than you are the 40-yard dash. Obviously, 3-cone, you get the change of direction, you get the acceleration, foot in the ground, change of direction, reaccelerate.
Playing at an angle.
Yeah,
a little bit.
Yeah, kind of how angular can you make your body, especially with DNs or rushers. 3-cone drill's really nice for that because you kind of see them get that dip where
who are we talking about last week as the best athletes on the planet? Do you remember that? You go, it's easy to say it was the Jordan talk, the best athletes on the planet.
Yeah, well, we were talking about.
I knew it was Bo, but I think
I brought up the fact that a lot of times we just throw the best athlete on the planet
because
out there.
Do you know who are really, really underappreciated athletes?
DNs?
Yes.
Yeah.
And outside linebackers.
Their body control.
So, he's not going to make anybody's, I think, unless you think about it. But one of the reasons why I like the current election to the NFL Hall of Fame
mm-hmm.
is because I felt like what he could do for his body type was grossly underrated.
Who's that?
Julius Peppers.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Unbelievable athlete for his size.
It was like 6'6", 290, something like that.
His long arms, he was twitchy. He could play at 45s. Mm-hmm. Really good spatial awareness. It's hard for big guys to move like that.
I mean, he was a legitimate starter at the University of North Carolina basketball team.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. What was that, 99, 2000?
Yeah. It was late.
Right around.
It was early 2000s.
Right around there. 01, maybe. Yeah.
It was right before the 05 team. It was just before that. No, DN, their ability to play at angles is kind of crazy.
Sick.
Coming up next, we're going to talk to our guy Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald. We'll get back into Nebraska basketball a little bit, maybe a little Nebraska baseball. Spring ball is coming up as well. We'll cover everything.
They took 3 out of 4 from GCU.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio. Here is the sports editor for the Omaha World-Herald, Sam McKewon.
That's fine. That's fine. That's fine.
Sam McKewon.
We're gonna throw the ball, and you just stand back there and throw it where you want to go. And that kind of thing.
Sam McKewon.
Are you guys going? Sure.
Now, Sam McKewon.
Pass to underhand to Gary. Steps back for a three. That'll fall. A career high 22 for Jawan Gary.
Kicking off hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and KFOR in Lincoln. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We're joined now on the Warhorse Sportsbook Hotline by our friend Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald. Sam, how are you this morning?
I'm really good. How are you guys?
Good, Sam. How are things? What are we working on this morning?
We just update our NET rankings every Monday. So that'll be up here in about 10, 15 minutes. It's popular. People really want to know where all the teams are. And we did Creighton and Nebraska and UNO. So, it was a good basketball week.
Yeah.
Around here.
For the most part, Creighton shouldn't fall too far, right?
No, they moved up in the NET rankings.
Yep.
In the AP rankings and the coaches rankings, I think they'll probably stay right where they are, because if you look at what happened last week in men's college basketball, a lot of teams lost. I mean, it's just late in the year. A lot of teams, you have desperate teams on the bubble. They're playing their butts off. And you have teams that are already in the tournament that just had a big win. And so there was a bunch of losses and wins last week. I don't think Creighton's going to move much.
Right around, 10-11, 10-9?
Well, in the NET, they're 11. In the AP, they're 15. I think they'll stay around there.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Sam, speaking of Creighton, DB and I kind of had this conversation earlier this morning about what we thought happened in terms of just, hey, they didn't play well enough. St. John's just played well, whether or not letdown games exist.
I had to give him a stern talking to, Sam.
And I'm a stubborn listener, so we'll I don't know how much.
What was the
because I didn't buy the letdown thing, and I think you're letting a good team off the hook, and I think Coach Mack preached about the letdown. I think everybody talked about the letdown. I think you could look at the line and see letdown. Like, if that snuck up on them, that was on Creighton. They just got to own that. There was no letdown. That was my exact delivery.
Yeah. I mean, I think St. John's is played really well.
100%.
You got to play Madison Square Garden. That's not easy. And I mean, St. John's is playing desperate. And then they match up well with Creighton. They are Creighton's kryptonite. They're the team that now there are other teams in the NCAA tournament that Creighton does not want to face that are similar to St. John's. I don't know exactly who all those teams are, but you kind of know once you get there. The teams that change you. San Diego State, although again they went to the national championship game last year, so they were very good.
Mm-hmm.
But that team, that style, the way they play, that's not a good fit for Creighton. Creighton struggles with that. Villanova. Now they go to Villanova, I think, at the end of the year. That's an upset alert, because Villanova's style hurts teams like Creighton and then drags bad teams into games too.
They shoot so many.
You're gonna have to watch that.
Everybody says that about Villanova. I don't. They shoot so many threes. Like, if you would have told me, they're mid range, or they like, ball screens or 2-man games. Like, I get Dixon being a tough matchup, but I don't love this year's version of Villanova against Creighton. And just my opinion at first blush, because they dial it from distance so much.
Well, it's that the guy that makes their threes, or a lot of them, draws Kalkbrenner away from the rim.
Yeah.
And so that's challenging, because they either have to decide to.
And he does play well against Creighton.
Mm-hmm.
He played great against Creighton. He played incredible last year. And then he played really well in the first game this year. So you have to decide who you're going to use to guard him. And if it's Kalkbrenner, then that changes the whole, that changes their whole defensive structure. St. John's is a hard team for Creighton to play. Marquette's hard, and
Yeah, that's
this weekend, and they're really athletic. And now, in my opinion, this is just my opinion. You get to the NCAA tournament, I'll take Creighton over Marquette because some of the things that Creighton does are hard to stop in a short turnaround situation. Creighton can play fast. They can go on big runs in an NCAA tournament. If a team can go on a big run, there's just a clock inside your head that's like, all right, we only got 12 minutes left in our season. It creates a kind of pressing. So I like Creighton in the NCAA tournament. So long as they get a good draw, I think they have a great chance to get exactly where they were last year, and then it comes down to executing in the Elite Eight. I think Creighton's in a great spot.
I'm calling my shot. Creighton will be beating Marquette on March 2nd.
Will or won't?
Will.
All right. We'll take. Listen,
and I know it's a tough matchup with Oduro and Kolick in the 2-man game, and then Jones is the human bucket, but they'll beat Marquette Saturday. It's a desperate Seton Hall team you probably got to worry about. That's a sleepy one. You want to talk about bad catchphrases for sports? The classic look ahead. The classic look ahead game. A desperate Seton Hall team travels to Omaha before they play. I mean, all the narratives are there, but here's the deal with the Big East. Anytime you lace them up, if you're not playing Georgetown or DePaul, you better buckle up, period. And I think the good teams like Creighton know that. That's just my opinion.
They do. They absolutely know it, for sure.
Let's go to Lincoln.
Sam, let's switch gears to Nebraska basketball here. Obviously got the big win against Minnesota yesterday in convincing fashion, kind of put to bed the road narrative against Indiana earlier in the week. How, I guess, when you look at the, Tominaga wasn't really going yesterday, Rink Mass wasn't really going yesterday. Like, is there any part of you that's surprised that Nebraska has found ways to be good offensively when a couple of guys that we thought were non-negotiables for them weren't really there?
Well, I mean, I don't know that you expect Jawan Gary to shoot like that from three, but Bryce Williams has been a good addition, and I think as we went into the
really good
the off season. So I mean, Wilson covers the team now, but I had to kind of pitch in there for about 6 months. So I spent a lot of time looking into the transfers, right? The guys that they had added. And, I think we had spent a lot of time thinking about Rink Mass because of who he was replacing, and Derek Walker was the best player on last year's team. Bryce Williams didn't really have a direct comp the last year. I guess it was Vandemel, but they're kind of different players, and I think Bryce has just been really good. I mean, the one thing that I appreciate most about Bryce is that I don't think coming into the season we thought he was going to be the guy that's like, all right, clear out, I'm going to go to the rim, and he's become that guy. And that's been a big part of he's the alpha. He's willing to go out to the top of the key and make something happen with 9 seconds on the shot clock. And I'm not saying he's Trey Alexander in that regard, but he's good and he's been effective. And so I think he's been I don't know if pleasant surprise is the right word, but his game is broader than we thought it was going to be. And then Fred Hoiberg made a tweak with Jamarcus Lawrence, and it has worked. You got two guys from the same high school coming off the bench at the exact same time, and it seems to work. Now, they don't always go off at the same time. C.J. Wilcher did not play well yesterday, but Jamarcus Lawrence has really enjoyed that role. I'm not sure why, but it suited him, and that may be the role that he has for the next 2 years. In my opinion, just my opinion, they need to go get a point, a true point. Bryce has sort of evolved into that, but they need to go out and get another guy that's like Sam or Bryce or whomever, and let Jamarcus just be a two guard and come off the bench and do what he does. But those are the things that I think have helped them immensely. And then they've been pretty consistent here in the last 2 weeks on defense. And just imagine how good they'd be on defense if Blaise Keita were healthy, because he might be their best defender. And he just hasn't been healthy all year. So, Nebraska's, this is the best they've been in a while, and Fred Hoiberg deserves quite a bit of credit. He won't take it. He deflects a lot, but he deserves a lot of credit for how this program kind of pulled itself off the camp.
Yeah, and I was saying this. So this is like across the board. You know, you were talking about Lawrence and Wilcher, and you have to know your personnel before the culture has to be in place before you pull that trigger, right? You have to know that the culture can sustain if CJ Wilcher doesn't respond well to coming off the bench or being a situational offensive guy, or Jamarcus Lawrence is going to like you're trusting that the culture is going to buoy that if it doesn't go as planned, right? You got to have the stones to pull the trigger, but you have to be able to support the outcome too if it's not good. Conversely, or not conversely, but in the same vein, he said a lot of things publicly all year about being very specific with guys, which you also can't and typically don't do without knowing the pulse of your team. Don't you think, and you're right dab smack in the middle of it, haven't we undersold this whole knowing it, the chemistry, building the chemistry, kind of resetting the culture that Hoiberg has done the last year and a half?
Yeah, I mean, I think he always had that, quality within him. I think
that was the conversation this morning. Ravi and I had to start the show. Was it always in there and it was just an Abdelmassih thing, or is this new?
I mean, I think it was always in there, and Matt Abdelmassih takes a lot of shots, and some of those I suppose are reasonable. Some are maybe a little. I'll just say this: the COVID year was really tough on the program, and nobody likes hearing that. That was the other time I had to pinch it, covering it, and it was hard. It was not easy. They missed an entire month of basketball. Then when they came back, they played 13 games in 20 some days, and it was just a tough experience for the program. And they thought they were going to be pretty good. Maybe not this good, but I think they thought, well, maybe we can make the NIT, or I don't even know if they had the NIT in the COVID year. I'm talking 2020, 2021.
Mm-hmm.
But they thought they were going to be better than that. And then COVID just sort of, canceled an entire month of basketball. That was a very strange experience. And I don't think it was easy on Fred. I don't think it was easy on the staff. And then I think they came back. And again, I'm not trying to make excuses. I'm trying to just lay it out. They thought Delano Bant was going to return, and he got drafted. And he stayed in the draft, and it changed the entire nature of that team. They had built the entire team for Delano Bant to return and be the point guard. Then he leaves, and then they sign a point guard that really didn't figure it out until like 3 weeks left in the season. So that's part of what happened. And, and then I think, and it was after that the change kind of kicked in. Bryce McGowan was a good guy and had a good season here, but I don't think that was the fit, because I think there was a lot of we got to get Bryce's points. There were whole possessions of games, whole stretches of games where they just throw the ball to Bryce and he would isolate, and it was time for Bryce to score. And that's not really Fred. I think that's not who he is. I think he either wants a post guy to be a distributor or the point guard to be the distributor, but he doesn't want a wing to just stand out there and dribble around and shoot. And so I think that's when they started to change. They figured it out with Derek Walker. The offense got better. They focused more on defense. They got Jawan Gary. All those things matter. But people will notice, even though they didn't shoot very well yesterday, they scored 73 points. And they're pretty good on offense. And I think that actually matters. I think the way that they score and the distribution and the balance of that, I know it's not a program that's it's not Creighton on offense, but they're scoring 77 points a game. And that's the most they've scored in a really, really long time. So the defensive focus matters, but I'm just telling you, the offensive stuff is important too. And I think they score enough points that it helps their defense. Their defense is willing to play. I don't even know the last time they scored 77 points a game, guy. I don't know. I think it was the 90s.
Probably the last time that they had a 45-point half.
I mean, I'm looking right now. I'm going back through stat reference. The last time that Nebraska scored 77 points a game was in the NIT championship season of 95-96. They scored 80 points a game that year. Yeah, and that team had Eric Strickland, Jerron Boone, Bernard Garner, Mikey Moore, and Teron Lou. That team was great. I mean, can you imagine how many points they would score today with all the? I mean, good God.
Hey,
So,
this is great.
So anyway,
It's almost like you caught yourself off guard, and it was like, oh god, this is awesome.
really,
I have a hunch. I think I'm going to validate myself.
it's unbelievable. It's been literally almost 30 years since they've scored 77 points a game. Now, people don't talk much about their offense, but their offense is actually pretty good, and that's what Ferd's really good at. And they've found a way to score points, and it affects their defense. Their defense, I think, is better because they're actually pretty darn good on offense.
We're talking with Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald. Sam, is something that I think gets overlooked, and I don't know if you've thought about it much, but how much more impressive is it that, you mentioned the not having a true point guard. They thought they had a true point guard, right? They thought they had they have Ulis, but he can't play, obviously. Like, how much more impressive is what they've been able to accomplish, considering, you mentioned when they thought they had Banton coming back the next year and then he was gone. This was even kind of a more bizarre situation than that, where they thought they had their point guard. He's obviously not able to play, and they were still able to adjust and be, the best offensive team Nebraska's had in 30 years.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think that's a testament to their understanding of the system. A lot of these guys are old. Bryce Williams is smart, so he was able to come in and kind of pick it up right away. It speaks to just how well they understand what they're doing. And if you look again, Sam Hoiberg did not make shots yesterday. There's a lot of things but if you watch Sam and like his understanding of what he's supposed to do when he has the ball, and like when he's supposed to peel back out, and when the dribble drive is cut off, and where he goes and where he passes. If you just watch him for a whole game, I think you can see like the genius of Fred's system, because Sam really understands it. It's obvious that he understands it. And the things that he gets to and the passes that he makes, and some of the passes that, like CJ Welcher understands it really well now in year 3. Some of the things that these guys do, it's pretty cool. Hoiberg is the thing he's really good at is creating sets and creating a system, not just sets, but a system where if you know what you're doing, it's hard to stop you. And the cool thing is they're going to be very, very similar next year. This is going to be a team that Bryce can come back, Rink can come back. The only guys that are gone are Josiah and Casey for sure, and Jerron Coleman. He's gone. And then Ulis will be there. I expect him to play.
I move on from Ulis. Go get my man Chucky Hepburn. Bring Chucky home. That's my answer.
Well, I think there was probably an opportunity to have conceived that.
I don't.
Make the NCAA tournament.
I get it. I think this may be the year to make the run. Add him if you're going to do it. Okay. I'm just putting that out there. But let me say,
I've seen. It's clear that he's capable of more than that offense allows him to be, but that's just the way it is.
Yeah. He doesn't always look overjoyed, does he? I'm just saying. Hey, so Sam, how about this though? Like, we're talking about tinkering and offense versus defense and all that other stuff. How about how he's somehow they figured out with Alec and Gary playing at the same time, and him staying with Alec is kind of the pulse of their heartbeat. And he I won't say never gets talked about, because I think that's sometimes hyperbole for media when they want to get credit for saying the guy's name, but he does get a little love. But the ability to play those two guys and not really skip a beat on offense is, I think that's pretty underappreciated, because that lineup gets stops.
Oh yeah, it sure does. Yeah, Josiah gets a lot of mentions from the writers, because he's a great quote, and so for sure he gets a lot of run in print, and I'm glad for that. I think he's kind of one of the leaders of the team. He just plays so hard, and yesterday he played really hard. I think when their coach Johnson was, and I like him a lot.
I do too. I like Ben. He's a good coach.
He is. And so when he was talking about a team possessed, I mean, I certainly thought of Alex and how hard he was playing. And, you know, he's so willing to get on the floor. He's just kind of willing to do everything, anything and everything he can. And he doesn't really care if he scores. I think he loves just doing all the gritty stuff. And he's been what they hoped he would be.
Well, he started 2 of the breaks from the ground, from the floor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's yesterday was not a pretty game, but it was gritty, and it was kind of, you know, who they want to be as a program, and again they won by 18. I mean, it was, you know, they really, I don't know what's going on with Minnesota that Ola Joseph didn't play until the end. I haven't paid enough attention to what they're doing there, but you know, there's certainly things about Nebraska that we haven't seen this kind of program in a while. We just haven't. And people can talk about the Tim Miles team from 10 years ago, and that's fine. But that team couldn't score to save its life, and this one can't.
This team would beat that team, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah, for sure. For sure. And, you know, there's things about this team. We just haven't seen this in a while. And appreciate it. And appreciate it again next year, because I think a lot of it will come back. I think, you know, NIL will kick in, and a lot of these guys will be like, yeah, let's just do this one more time and see what happens, because I think it's a team that could be even better next year.
The curious case of Dawson Garcia continues.
Yeah, Sam, it's kind of interesting you brought up the roster retention, because Nebraska's got a lot of good players, but not a lot of these guys are looking at NBA careers, right? So there's going to be an opportunity to get, I mean, most of these guys back.
Almost all of them. Yep. I think there may be players who choose to transfer out because it's evident they're not going to play.
Yeah, sure.
But I would anticipate almost all of those players returning for another year. As I look at the roster, you know, I don't know about Blaze Keita. He's been hurt a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I know they know what he can do if he's healthy, but he hasn't been healthy all year, and he's not going to play. I mean, obviously he's just taking a redshirt year. And then there's a couple other players that are maybe down the bench, but I think all of these players are going to return. Gives you an opportunity to redshirt Frager, which I assume they were imagining they were going to do anyway. You know, so all those things are good, and they're going to be a really good team next year. Everybody coming back, a lot of people coming back. So it's fun. This is just the beginning of what I think could be a 2 or 3 year run for this program. And if they get to the NCAA tournament, and let's say they win a game, how much more attractive is Nebraska basketball going to be in the transfer portal? Very attractive.
Yeah, it's got all the other stuff going for it, doesn't it? I mean, it is a heck of a place to play basketball.
That's Sam McKewon from the Omaha World-Herald. Sam, we appreciate your time as always. We'll talk to you next week.
Take care.
Thanks, Sam.
That is Sam McKewon. Coming up next, we've got a bunch of stuff to clean up in the Warhorse Sportsbook Sports Cleanup. Coming up next here on Hurrdat Sports Radio. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We'll have more coming up next.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio. Things you wanted us to get to from the weekend, but we didn't.
Cleanup on aisle 6.
It's the Sports Cleanup.
Welcome into the Warhorse Sportsbook Sports Cleanup here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're also on KFOR in Lincoln, of course, live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. And I want to tell you about our friends over at Warhorse Sportsbook. It is the best place in Nebraska to place your sports bets. You can do it at the casino in Lincoln or at Horseman's Park here in Omaha. That's 6303 Q Street. You can place bets on nearly every major sporting event. You can do props, parlays, straight bets, in-game, whatever you can think of. They are most likely able to accommodate you. If you have any questions, want to see the full list of details or house rules, you can either download the Warhorse Casino app or you can go to warhorsecasino.com/sportsbook and get all that information there. Warhorse Sportsbook, no bets, no glory. Might do a couple sections of sports cleanup here.
Why? Is there a lot that you'd like to get off your chest when talking to me?
No, not necessarily. There's just a lot we haven't got to yet today.
Okay.
First and foremost, I mean, we're gonna talk a little combine later this week, but there was you mentioned Cam Newton off air.
Oh,
in one of the
getting Cameron Newton,
kind of one of the more bizarre things that we've seen happen. And he's kind of a bizarre guy.
I like Cam.
I do too, but he's an odd duck, as we would say.
100%.
He was at a youth football event,
his own.
Yeah, a 7-on-7 event, right? Mm-hmm. And he appears to get jumped.
Well, he's trying to break up an altercation.
And then they turn on him.
Yeah.
And he seems to handle several people pretty easily.
How do he keep his hat on?
I don't know.
What was my man like Billy Jack? Even Billy Jack would have taken his hat off.
I wonder if he had it pinned in there.
You think?
Well, so sometimes when women
Shane,
Indiana Jones, who has had his hat pinned
Billy
in.
Jack?
I don't know what Billy Jack is.
Oh my God.
Billy Jack was legit.
I'm going to take my right foot. Listen, Billy Jack.
I don't know what Billy Jack is.
He was great. He was an he's Native American folklore hero. Used to have a couple movies.
Okay.
And he wore a very similar hat.
Like 3 movies, 3 or 4 maybe.
Okay.
Big Billy Jack guy.
I'm just saying.
He came to talk to us in Lincoln once.
Really?
Yeah. As an Oklahoman.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know how Coach Osborne got him.
But I don't know. Some people find it hard to say no to Coach Osborne.
I thought, whoa.
It was just his birthday too, by the way.
Happy birthday, Coach O.
A couple days late, but yeah.
Yeah, a couple days late. He's pushing 90 now, isn't he?
86, maybe.
Okay.
7.
Okay, not quite that. Okay.
He and my dad are about the same age, so I'm within a year probably.
Oh, fair. No, but it was so with the hat, a lot of times, when women have big hair in the hat, they'll pin it in there with like hairpins and stuff. So I wonder if it was attached somehow. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's kind of weird, but maybe.
Not as weird as randomly getting like in a fight at your own event. Like, what happened there?
People just don't. People can't behave themselves.
Well,
that's the problem.
We've seen that.
It's just the inability to behave yourself.
If you're
and living and dying with your kids in sports.
That's a whole other problem.
It's hilarious.
If you're at a youth sport event and you're in that situation, how many people can you take on your own, the way Cam Newton did?
Well, it depends, but if they're probably a couple,
yeah, because Cam Newton was getting after it. I was impressed.
Yeah, I had a crazy situation in Lincoln.
Really?
Oh yeah.
What happened?
Oh, someplace we shouldn't have been.
Okay.
And one of the guys ended up getting it pretty bad, Riley Washington.
Yeah.
But ended up getting him out of there, and Abdul and I made it relatively unscathed. I got stabbed with a bottle in my back.
Oh.
But like kind of the lore grew a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, ooh, this guy's nuts.
We don't mess with DB anymore.
And I didn't know until we got to the hospital to check on Riley. But
that you got stabbed?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it was weird too.
That's like an adrenaline thing, right?
Yeah, and I had on like you talk when I said I had bad taste in ladies, like they haven't aged well. You should have seen the shirt I had. It was like a paisley short sleeve button up.
Was it like a Erykah Badu shirt?
Stop. I think it matched my maroon Carl Knight jeans. I felt like Eric Strickland or somebody. I was like, why did I have this on?
You know what I would have said?
What?
Don't put that crap on me.
Yeah, I wouldn't wear that.
Let's get to the Warhorse.
DB, man, you bleeding. I was like, what?
Let's get to the Warhorse Sportsbook Hotline. We got Ramon on the line. What's going on?
Razor Ramon.
Damon, Ravi, and Shane. You guys, I was kicking myself after our last call because you guys asked me what I watched lately, and I was so caught up in the Hurrdat pageantry, I forgot what I last watched.
Hey, it happens to me too. That's why I let Ravi talk crazy to me every day.
Yeah, it just throws stuff at him.
It's the pageantry of Hurrdat.
He gets disoriented.
It's like, what is going on? I think he's crazy.
I watched American Nightmare. It just came out last month on Netflix.
Yep, I watched it in one night.
Is that the one that's like sort of a Gone Girl situation?
Yeah, I told you. Yeah, I was talking about it last week.
Right, but it was a case study in not rushing to judgment. So make sure you guys don't spoil it. Don't spoil it.
Hey, so I was telling Ravi this, and remember, because Ravi, this was the time I was like, gosh, I said all my buddies are on OPD. I feel like there's a couple back-to-back shows I watched
that don't
portray the police in a very good light.
Yeah.
And that was one of them. They were getting killed. Did you get that sense that the police were being portrayed in a pretty negative light?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
That was wild.
But I think that it was, I mean, you could also go back and look at the real facts. That's the thing that was good about it, is that it's a real story.
Mm-hmm.
So, and the thing about it is they weren't really able to get the people involved to speak on their own behalf. And I think they just, they didn't want to, and the producers don't have control over that.
Mm-hmm.
But it'd be interesting to hear what they had to say if they were going to tell their side.
Yeah.
But
on why
they tried to give them a chance.
But you know what? Watching it and in her delivery, and I won't spoil it for anybody that hasn't seen it, it didn't come across it like, who's that kind as a serial predator, right? And who just gets to go back to their, you know what I mean? Like, there were a lot of things that didn't add up. You know what I mean?
Right. I begs the question too. How do you, if something happened that you believe happened, but it sounds unbelievable, how do you present that?
Mm-hmm.
It's a tough thing to try to do.
Yeah, 100%. What else? Anything outside of American Nightmare? Did you get into True? Did you get into True Detective?
No, you know what? My wife likes that show.
So is it only 5? Is season 4 only 5 episodes or 6?
6, I think.
I'm not even really that familiar with it. I just kind of peeked in one time when she was watching it. So, which maybe I should peek more, because our history is, we don't tend to watch the same things. So
ever quite in the clear. Still one of the greatest lines ever uttered. I appreciate it, Ramon.
We appreciate the call on the Warhorse Sportsbook hotline there.
He was doing a movie review once.
Yeah.
And it's just what he said, right? Like, it was a couple wasn't getting along, it was a little infidelity, and his wife was not very comfortable. He said, that's the thing about marriage. At any moment, it can go south. He said, you're never really in the clear of a big argument when you're married.
Maybe we should have Ramon on in like a week, talk a little Oscars, a little Academy Awards.
I don't know anything about it, though.
You haven't watched any of them?
What are the nominees?
I mean, you got like Oppenheimer, which you said you're not going to sit through.
Yeah, there's no way.
I assume you didn't see Barbie.
No.
Okay.
Not even with a 5-year-old.
There was it's a little
she wasn't watching it.
Advanced for a 5-year-old. If anybody in your family was going to watch it probably would have been Jay.
Nope.
If anybody was, that's all I'm saying. I'm trying to think of what else is
not
nominated.
A ton of strong feminine Barbie qualities in her.
No, it's just I'm just it's not really a kid movie.
Gotcha,
is what I meant, right?
Okay.
So, I liked it. I thought it was pretty good.
Okay,
I wouldn't say it was pretty good.
What else we got?
I'm gonna have to look them up. Those are the only 2 I remember.
You actually went to the theater to see it?
Yeah, my wife wanted to go see it, so I went.
Oh, well, okay, there you go.
It was good. I liked it.
And further proof why I like Boyce, my grocery shopping guy.
Yeah,
big Billy Jack fan.
Listen, I still know what Billy Jack is.
We'll tell you about it over break.
We're gonna have
before
to
we clean up the rest of our sports
a little bit. We're gonna clean up a little bit. I still want to get to a little college football playoff.
Yeah,
we've been trying to get to for like a week and a half. We will get to it at some point. Maybe next. It's hard to tell.
Crapshoot.
Never quite know. Here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, and KFOR in Lincoln.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We're wrapping up the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. And, of course, we're live from Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. That's DB. I'm Ravi Lulla. We're brought to you by the Team Jack Foundation. They just had their gala on Saturday. Great event for everybody involved there. Want to remind you some of the things that Team Jack Foundation is trying to accomplish. First and foremost, the focus is finding on better treatments for kids fighting brain cancer and one day a cure. And the reason that's so important is because treatments currently used are decades old. We're talking almost 50 years old for some of these treatments, which means they're highly toxic. Even if a child survives the brain tumor, they're often left with lifelong issues due to the old, out-of-date, and toxic treatments. The Team Jack Foundation has partnered with over 13 projects at this point, raising over $12 million and counting for this goal, including being involved with the University of Nebraska Medical Center and the creation of the Nebraska Childhood Brain Tumor Program. If you want to get involved, you can check out their events. You can donate right there from the website. It's teamjackfoundation.org to get involved with this very worthy cause. Just over the break here, trying to figure out how many Academy Award-winning movies that DB has seen. We're up to 15, and we're not even to present day yet. So that's pretty good. That's not bad.
I've seen 15.
My buddy,
there was a heck of a run, though.
Yeah. Oh, I told you it was going to be the 90s and like into the 2000s is where you really started.
Is that for Pitcher of the Year? Is that where you're rolling through?
Yeah.
For what of the year?
The Pitcher of the Year.
Like Nolan. No, it's called the Cy Young.
Yeah.
Yes, we were going through.
I'm still laughing
Like
at
a National League or American League?
At ready-made Dr. Seuss. That's a little harsh for my man Cameron Newton.
Listen, he's got a very eclectic style.
Yeah, it's a little much. It's not for me, but I
appreciate the confidence to rock what you like. You know, gotta do what you gotta do.
And I think I think that's kind of.
And he's like 6'5", 250. I'm not gonna ask questions.
Yeah, probably bigger than that.
He's at least that.
He's a big
dude.
Yeah.
Wanted to get into the college football playoff a little bit here.
I never cheered so hard for his comeback.
With New England?
I probably did, but his was up there. It wasn't like Tiger or somebody, but
yeah, I didn't love the way he got treated on the way out at Carolina.
Maybe Kobe from his Achilles.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah. I've never been a huge Cam Newton guy because I didn't like that Auburn team. So it was, it was hard to separate his pro career from that for me.
Yeah, I think I didn't either. But I did think, like, you look at that D-line and stuff, they turned out to be better than I think they were given credit for going into that game.
The offense,
I think that was Farley and those guys.
Yeah, the offense wasn't there. Like, none of those guys.
But I do think I do have an appreciation for, like, imposing your will.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, that's what they did. But I got something interesting for you. And outside of Dookie Clint, he's probably the biggest Duke fan I know.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, there are a lot. Maybe I should.
Duke fans in your life?
He's top 5
Fair
Duke fans, right? And it would be easy for him to take the, Filipowski, it's my guy, this, that, and the other. But you know what he said?
What?
I thought this was interesting. He goes, remember I told you earlier, he said schools let it happen for marketing purposes. Mm-hmm. This was early. This was like in the 7:00 hour.
Yeah.
And I said, shoot, there's probably something to that. And he comes back with this. He says, I think it's being overanalyzed. Schools want the court storming whenever they play Blue Bloods or number 1 ranked teams. More security is probably the answer. Jay Billis also just said schools use it for recruiting and marketing purposes. Now, he's a die-hard, I mean, like die-hard Duke Blue Devils fan.
Yeah.
And even he's not on the cancel, get rid of it, over purposes. Like, I think he still has the ability to, like, peel back the layer and see it, and you're obviously going to need Filipowski. But
so, full disclosure, I kind of like the moment that it creates, right? Because he's right. It is a nice marketing piece. It is a nice recruiting piece. And obviously it means, I didn't mind it when Nebraska stormed the court against Purdue. I obviously didn't mind it when Creighton stormed the court against UConn. And generally speaking, nothing bad happens for the most part, right? For as many court stormings as we've had, we have not really had that many issues. That can be true on one side. And like we said earlier, two things can be true at the same time. I can also acknowledge, hey, we're creating a probably unsafe situation, right? The more people you have in kind of a chaotic area, small, packed-in area, the more likely it is something bad's going to happen, whether it's a player getting hurt, whether it's a fan getting hurt, whatever. And so I can kind of appreciate the moment that it happens in and not even necessarily be against that moment and understand, like, yeah, it's probably for everyone's best interest if we make this stop, right? Because that's kind of where I'm at.
So you're done with it?
I'm not, like, I like the moment, but I also understand if people are like, hey, we need to fix this.
Okay. So you're like a fix guy, not stop.
I mean, whatever it looks like. I don't know that's why I asked you. That's why my first question was, what is the fix here? Like, what's the solution?
I think it's security presence. And I also think I think sometimes you have to deal with foolishness on a little bit harsher level. Like, I'm a big meet people where they're at guy.
Yeah, right. And you mentioned that earlier where it's, hey, if you're going to act like you're
like sometimes if people want to be on social media and that's how they best communicate, sometimes even though it's not your style, you have to meet them on social media.
That's fair.
Or through social media or something like that.
That's fair. I can appreciate that. Let's get to college football playoff here a little bit. Well, we've got like 5 minutes. But
is that it?
That's all we got left. That's the whole show.
Ravi here for advocate of expansion.
I like the idea of expansion. I do. But I understand what you're saying, whereas, and I don't like what's happening right now because I don't understand how, hey, we're going to approve a 12-team thing out of one side of our mouth, and out of the other side of our mouth, we're going to talk to expanded 14 or 16 before we even see if the 12-team thing works. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. That feels like a reckless money grab. And we all know at the end of the day, like what we're doing here in terms of why things are expanding. But can we make it make sense first? Like, is it okay to make the money grab, but like, let's make it make sense and then we grab the money? It's not like it's going anywhere.
Yeah, but so do you know kind of like the classic letdown game thing?
Sure.
Do you know why I don't want to let you off the hook?
On the letdown game or
on because I feel like you want it both ways, right? Like you wanted expansion.
I do want expansion.
But you don't like the fact that it is where it is currently.
I would like them to figure their things out a little bit better.
Okay, do you realize when serious expansion talk like really started?
When?
I would go 21, 20.
Okay.
Right? So you're talking about 4 legitimate years. One of them was a COVID year.
Fair.
Without the agreement even being up yet. It was, hey, it's coming up in 3 years. Hey, it's coming up in 2 years. Hey.
You mean from the 4 team?
Yeah.
Fair.
How much time did you think you were going to get
with a 4 team
to figure it out?
I don't know. That's a fair question.
Right? Because
that's a fair question.
It's just what I like. Sometimes we're not afforded the luxury to go back and talk about like where we are right now without addressing how we got there. Because all you're going to do is increase your chances of repetitive behavior.
That's fair, I guess.
So, right, like I feel like you got to be held accountable for, and I'm not even a pound of flesh guy, so that's the wrong term, but you have to have the discussion of why it moves so fast. Because if you get people to say out loud, do you know why this moves so fast? We saw all this money.
So a lot of dollar signs.
And because we have all this money and we see that it's kind of gotten a free-for-all with these conferences, this is how we're going to roll. Is everybody cool with that? And then see how people react.
Listen, if they just said that,
then see how people react.
We kind of had this conversation off air with Adam McClintock Friday after his segment.
How about his data?
The
injury thing?
Unbelievable. I had no idea.
Do we need to share that if we're going to talk about it out loud?
Yeah. So Adam McClintock from Matrix Analytical, college football professor, we were talking about the playoff expansion on Friday a little bit.
And how NAI like D2, D3 has done
right.
The multiple games,
and they've been fine, for the most part, and how you can't have the expansion and still try and talk about player safety. You know, kind of the same thing we were talking about the NFL going to 17 or 18 games, right? And he was saying his data shows, because they did this study for one of their clients.
He said, "Okay, y'all touched a nerve."
Yeah, that the rate of injury in a Power 5 game versus a Group of 5 game is three times
more likely to get a season-ending injury at the Power 5 school than G5. Adding more playoff games is not beneficial to players at all. I get the entertainment value, but let's not act like there won't be collateral damage by playing more games. That was only a portion of my soapbox, which by the way, I got the blue squirt Irish Spring.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You said you're an Irish Spring guy.
I used to be just green.
Yeah.
Came out blue. It smells sensational.
So you're like an Irish Spring gel. You're not using the bar?
I did not like the aloe version.
Not an aloe guy?
No.
I understand that.
Thank you for letting me say that.
Whatever you want to do.
It had nothing to do with anything.
That's all right.
All those soapboxes.
Soapbox, trying to clean it up. I don't know.
And that's just partial. Like, just say the quiet part out loud and see if we can handle it. See what it will be like.
Well, that's why they don't say the quiet part out loud, right? Because the fact of the matter is there is no justification for this from a player safety standpoint.
But you do realize, though, if you say the quiet part out loud, you give people the opportunity to know what they're dealing with.
To either buy in or not.
And you won't get as much, this is weird, but you won't get as much hateful pushback if you just
admit it.
If you just admit it.
Well,
people will be more apt to work with you.
Well, you're taking the ammunition away from, right?
It's called disarming.
It's like 8 Mile where Eminem just goes, "Hey, these are all things you're going to say about me. Here it is. What do you have to say now?" Nothing.
Yeah.
Anthony Mackie got real quiet in that situation, right? Like, it's if they just come out and say, "Hey, this is a money grab. We understand it's not best for the players. If they want to opt out, they're more than welcome to. But they're seeing some of this money now, so this is what it is."
And I guarantee you, the response
it'd be a lot different.
Be a lot different.
We will probably continue talking about this tomorrow because we still didn't even talk about Notre Dame yet.
Oh, they're in a conference.